Hey everybody, you are tuning into the Canary Cry News Talk live stream pre-stream. Congratulations for being here just a little bit early. And congratulations to Rise for Truth over on Twitch with the first comment of the day. D-Live, you were so close, but Twitch beat you out just in the last second there. But we're about to get started, folks. You'll notice the Canary Cry Radio YouTube channel will not be broadcasting today, which is just another reminder to follow us in multiple locations. They got us with another strike from a podcast from like 3 months ago. So there you go. There's your another warning. Follow us all over the place, folks. Twitch, D-Live, both YouTube channels, Rumble, Odyssey. It's all over the place. Go to linktr.ee/Canary Cry News Talk to find all our links. Join the newsletter, all the fun stuff. Head on over to canarycrynewstalk.com for show notes, to see the art, and to get connected via the mailing list. You're not going to regret it. We don't spam. We don't send anything out unless it is a very important message. So there you go. Okay, we're about to get started here, folks. So strap on in and stay hydrated. Let's go.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is June 4th, 2021. And this is episode 346. Today, Cyber Hacky Sack. That's right. Razzle Dazzle. I'm your best buddy, Basil.
And this is Gonz, your favorite Asian provocateur for Christ. Welcome to the podcast, where we bring you the best news, which is the gospel message of Jesus Christ, while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. And I think the episode is titled Cyber Hack Trick instead of Hacky Sack, but that all depends on where you're reading because, notes get mixed up.
Okay, well, it's titled whatever you want. You didn't like the Hacky Sack title?
I don't know. I kind of went back and forth with it. Apparently, I have Cyber Hacky Sack at the very top of the document, and then I decided to go with Cyber Hack Trick, like a hat trick, like the trifecta.
Yeah, okay. Both are good.
Yeah, either way.
Both are good.
Whatever you want.
Whatever, bro. Well, like we mentioned in the pre-show, the Canary Cry Radio YouTube channel received another strike from an episode that came out months ago. So you will not be seeing this live on the Canary Cry Radio YouTube channel. Just another reason to follow us and subscribe to the podcast all over the place. Don't rely on one outlet. I saw some comments of people saying, oh, I don't do anything else. I just do YouTube. I only enjoy my independent media through the censorship minefield of Susan Wojcicki's dreamscape. Okay, if that's how you want to play it. But we're all over the place. Plenty of places to get the uncensored version of Canary Cry News Talk.
Yes.
But other than that, we're not the only ones experiencing this, Gonz. Our good buddy Josh Peck has recently been a victim.
Well, not just Josh Peck, but the entire SkywatchTV channel on YouTube got taken down.
Right. Yes. But I believe this was sort of orbiting around the was Silent Cry, the film Josh Peck and team made over there, doing a great job exposing the child trafficking situation. And there you go. Susan didn't like it. Said, no, thank you. I prefer to ignore probably the most heinous part of human society, and I don't want people to know about it. Yeah. So, all right, Susan, if that's what you're into.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. I have a quote here to start things off. It's from George R.R. Martin, the famous guy here.
Great. Yeah.
He said, when you tear out a man's tongue, you are not proving him a liar. You're only telling the world that you fear what he might say. Susan, what are you fearing?
Susan,
that, they might say. And it wasn't just SkywatchTV and Josh Peck. TitusFrost, his channel got taken down. And I think this is like the fourth or fifth time his channel has been taken down. And I'm not even talking about
to it by now.
Well, the thing is, it's not that it's not that his channel gets taken down and then it gets brought back up. It gets taken down. He starts a new channel, rebuilds the audience, whatever, and then that gets taken down. I think this is like the fourth or fifth time that's happened. So
it's savage. He's
crazy.
A savage guy, man. He's able to do it. He rebuilds from scratch every time. I know. It's very impressive.
Yeah. So prayers out for TitusFrost and the whole pirate crew over there, and hopefully follow him on other platforms as well. I know he's streaming on DLive and other places, so good to keep up with him. Yeah, and one of the things that just happened, Bitcoin 2021 is going on right now, right?
What is that? Like a conference?
It's a giant conference in Miami, or I think it's Miami. It's in Florida. And, you have all your top Bitcoiners out there talking. And Jack Dorsey, Twitter guy, was on stage when
Notorious
Laura Loomer,
homeless Twitter CEO.
Notorious homeless. Is he a billionaire? He must be close, right? Or he is.
He's somewhere up there.
Yeah. Who runs Twitter, was confronted by Laura Loomer. And there's about a 15-second clip here of Laura Loomer, causing a scene.
Censorship is a human rights violation. You are censoring people. You are interfering in elections like
What's funny, because people are yelling, deplatform her, and she's already deplatformed off Twitter, so it's not that big of a deal. And the guy that was trying to hold her back is the podcaster also. I can't remember his name, but he does the podcast What Bitcoin Did. It's a pretty popular podcast. And you got Jack on stage there. He looks pretty homeless. I mean, he looks he looks like he is one of those old school white supremacists. He's got the big beard, but he's bald. He
does got that vibe, yeah.
It's super American.
He used to have his like super trendy haircut, but now he's just buzzed it, huh?
Yeah, he looks like an Edward Norton from American X. Do you remember that movie?
Yeah,
that's
American History X.
American History X. There you go.
Yeah, not to say that anybody with a beard and who has a buzz cut, it looks like a white supremacist. It's just fun to make fun of Jack Dorsey.
Yeah. So there you go. That's and part of the whole thing with Laura Loomer, and this is just my opinion, is that she has been deplatformed along with guys like Alex Jones and others, and it's part of the divide and conquer methodology to get a certain segment of people to follow what have been created as sort of like social media martyrs, when they're canceled and deplatformed. And for us it's a little different because we're more little guys. I know there's a lot of subs on the Face Like the Sun channel, but we're not really tied into any kind of alt establishment in any kind of way. Right. And so we're truly independent.
Independence.
Yeah, true independence. So, they're going to silence us and no one really cares. Our followers care. Our producers care.
We have no recourse.
We have no, we don't have big news agencies or even big news or alt agencies, reporting Canary Cry radio channel was taken down. Like, nobody cares. Yeah. So in that regard, we're a little more in the middle. But people like Laura Loomer, I think, are there to stir up the right wing aisle or whatever. And so anyway, that's just my theory on the whole thing. But just something to keep in mind because it's pretty wild, man. It's wild. And one more quick quote from Heinrich Heine, or Heine, depending on how you read it. Where they have burned books, they will end in burning human beings.
Oh my gosh.
Oh
okay.
Yeah. Heine was actually his writings, and I think he was from the late 1700s and early 1800s. His writings were abhorred by the Nazis, and the Nazis really hated this guy, and they basically you know, they call this guy the guy who was the recipient of more National Socialist vitriol than anybody else during the Nazi period. Heinrich
I believe
Heine.
it.
And yeah, his little, it's almost like a prophetic statement here, you know, where they have burned books, they will end in burning human beings with the, you know, the Holocaust situation there. But anyway,
yep.
Just
okay.
I know it's not a happy intro today, but
yeah, wow.
had to be mentioned.
It's just hitting hard, hitting the deep button, the hard hitting spooky button right at the top there. Yeah. And on that note, I'm going to pull the ripcord and say, let's go into the Flippy update.
Flippy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Okay, if you're new to the show, Flippy is the colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy as a way to explore all the new, fun, and exciting ways that robots are taking over the world, and now there's nothing we can do about it. Today, I am bringing a story from Mainichi.
Mainichi in Japanese means every day.
Every day. Every day. Okay, there you go. Japanese outlet here. The headline is robot system developed by Japanese firms conducts up to 2,500 PCR tests per day. Woo! Let's see what they have to say for themselves. Robotic systems that can conduct up to 2,500 polymerase chain reactions PCR tests per day have been operating at 4 locations in Japan, and the developers aim to have 50 of them installed by the end of March 2022. So right off the bat, we've got 4 of these, institutions, these PCR testing facilities that can just do massive amounts of PCR tests. And they are making the investment to get 50 of them up by, a year from now, which really shows a commitment to continued mass PCR testing in Japan. So, okay, let's keep going. A robot arm gently lifts a tiny sample container, rotates it, opens the lid, moves part of the sample to another container, puts a reagent into it, and repeatedly conducts such delicate movements. This is the automated PCR viral testing robot system developed by Kawasaki Heavy Industries Ltd., major Kobe-based medical equipment and reagent manufacturer Seismex Corp., and their joint venture company Medicoroid Corp., also in Kobe. They started developing the system utilizing industrial robots in April last year as the coronavirus pandemic picked up steam in Japan, first introduced by Fujita Health University in Aichi Prefecture in January 2021. The systems have now been delivered to 4 locations in the country, including Kansai International Airport. Doing PCR tests from taking the samples to delivering the results usually takes 4 to 5 hours if done by hand. The system shortens the process to 80 minutes as it can work unattended. It also reduces infection risks for healthcare workers. And as the whole system, including testing equipment and the robotic arm, can be put into a 12.2 meter long, 2.5 meter wide container for easy transport, it is expected to see use at a variety of venues, including at sporting events. According to the Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare, domestic PCR testing capacity increased from some 2,000 per day in early February last year to about 200,000 as of May 26 this year. That's a 10x return, Gons. That's real growth.
Yeah, it's good. Are they talking about the cycle threshold? What number they're using?
Yes, the 2,000 cycle threshold. Yes, they can sense the fart of a coronavirus from the moon. It just ends
tardigrade
up here.
fart.
Yes, tardigrade fart on the moon of coronavirus. Ends here with a quote. In addition to vaccinations, large-scale testing can also lead to infection countermeasures, said Shigeki Aratama, 54, at Kawasaki Heavy Industries General PCR Business Department. Quote, we hope this can create a way for economic activities to resume or continue. Now, of course, this has so many things wrapped up. I want to make a point here for those who are not looking at the image that these are official Flippy arms, Kawasaki arms, in fact. Maybe Flippy, maybe what should we name these guys? Testy? Uh-oh. Nope, I don't call them. No. They're Flippies. No. And so it looks like you got 1, 2, 3, 4. You got about 8 of these things, all operating in sort of a shipping container size, conveyor belt system, and just pumping out these PCR tests. Now, there's a couple of troubling things with this. First of all, we know the problems with the PCR tests, notoriously able to basically create whichever outcome whoever's controlling the test wants. It's basically up to the authorities whether you're going to test positive or negative due to the cycle threshold count. So we all know about that. But also it's putting Flippy in a strange position, in my opinion, and I don't like it very much, which is Flippy is standing directly between human beings and their freedom. You literally now have a robotic arm who will be able to let you either roam freely and go to a sporting event or get on a plane, or if Flippy doesn't like you, no way, Jose. You're stuck. You're stuck in Tokyo.
I want to create a robot where one arm is a Flippy flipping burgers, and the other arm is one of these PCR tests, and both can serve, right up to the mouth there.
Yes, a nasal swab goes in, comes back out, and then a burger just gets stuffed right into your mouth. Technically, there's 2 different holes. They could do it at the same time.
Oh, okay.
What was it? Oh, but this is obviously, I'm not. I mean, we must know that this could possibly be more of like a PR project for Japan, the country, because of the Olympics coming up.
That could be it.
These will be, because they mentioned specifically sporting events, and I know that they play sports in Japan. They got baseball teams. I don't know what else they have, but I know they have baseball teams. But if you're talking about sporting, what?
They play mahjong.
Oh yes, the sport of mahjong. But yeah, you're gonna have these little Flippy arms stationed outside of Olympic events as they're showing off all the rest of their robotic infrastructure.
Yeah, I was gonna say
this is gonna be a big part of that.
I was gonna say that it's funny because the whole idea of the Tokyo Olympics, the big thing was that Japan gets to display their robot prowess, right?
Yep, they've been bragging about that for 3 years now.
It's funny because they're like, oh, we need a PCR test. And they're like, what do we do with a roboto,
Roboto.
More roboto. So
yeah. So there you go. Flippy is continuing to wiggle his way into every aspect of our lives, and especially in Japan. I saw something. There's a Vice article recently about Japanese homes that you can purchase for like $500.
Nice.
Apparently, there was a big. Japan has been sort of urbanizing. Everybody's moving out of the rural areas and into the urban areas.
Yeah.
And so these rural townships are having a really big depopulation problem, and they're just abandoning the houses a lot of times because nobody will buy them. Nobody wants to live out in the country.
I actually have family and even my parents who bothered me about that must have been a couple years ago now, where they're like, oh, you should buy some, they call them mansions. They're not mansions. They're like apartments. You should buy some mansions in Japan. I'm like, oh, okay. What do we do with it? I'm like, oh, you just own it. Does anybody live there? No. Can we go there? Sure, you can always visit. It was like, okay, so I don't know if I just want to drop money I don't have on a place that I don't often go.
Yeah.
And I don't know.
Well, there you go. You can get like, and I was looking at some of them. The whole website, they have a whole website devoted to it for Nagano.
Yeah.
The town of Nagano. There's forget what they're called. What are they called? Akiyas? That sounds familiar, which just means, I think, abandoned house. And they got a whole list of them, and some of them are pretty big. Some of them are like 3,000 square feet, 7 bedrooms. You got a garden. It's like $1,000 for the whole house.
Yeah.
So now they are like Japanese style houses, which are significantly different from Western houses. I was looking through the pictures. I'm like, wow, everybody has urinals. That's awesome. What is that hole in the floor for? Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah. As of 2013, over 8 million out of 60 million homes in Japan were considered akiya, or vacant.
Akiya, yeah.
That's a lot of vacant homes.
Yeah, I know. Well, there you go. I was thinking, you could just build a little rental empire for, just drop 10 grand and buy a bunch of these rural homes and try to rent them out. But I don't know. I don't know what the laws are. I know in the Philippines, foreigners cannot own property. So I don't know if it's the same in Japan. Yeah,
I might have to tap into some family and just be like, hey, buy it on my behalf and then name it Podcast Town. And then we can all go to Japan. You invite a bunch of podcasters to stay there and podcast.
That's not a bad idea, You had all these in the U.S. You had all these. It started with Vine back in the Vine days. R.I.P. Vine. I miss you so much.
Do you?
I do. Vine was the best.
Oh, they gave you TikTok to replace it.
No way. No, it just hurts too much. But it started with Vine. All these Vine stars would get their, they'd live in the same neighborhood, and they'd all just make Vines all day long. YouTube now started doing it, those YouTubers, but it's not as cool. Who cares about those YouTubers? All right, let's keep going with the show.
All right, so we have I put together a new jingle for the cyber pandemic because it feels like it's going to be an ongoing topic to cover here. And who would be the spokesman for the cyber pandemic? Klaus, of course.
The COVID-19 crisis would be seen as a small disturbance in comparison to a major cyber pandemic.
More disturbance. Why does he say small disturbance? I was expecting him to say a small disturbance in the Force.
Because he's Darth Vader. He's worse than Darth Vader. He is Emperor Palpatine. He dresses like Emperor Palpatine. He sounds like Emperor Palpatine. He can shoot lasers from his fingers like Emperor Palpatine. And he's kept alive by space age, life support systems on a distant planet. Thanks, Klaus.
Yeah. All right. Well, this is ABC7 New York. And, last episode we were talking about the different ways a cyber attack or a hack can affect the world and, different industries it can affect.
What's next?
What's
make
next?
Your predictions.
Yeah. And you called it, sorta.
Called it.
Because you said, you specifically mentioned the BART station, which is the Berkeley train station. But you were kind of Bay Area,
regional transport.
And this wasn't exactly BART, and this happened in April, so it wasn't exactly right after we talked about it. But the news came out the same day. It's as if they were listening to you, and they're like, "Oh shoot, they're on to us. Better publish the stories."
Yeah.
This is the hackers breached several of MTA's computer systems in April.
Hack of the MTA's computer system could have been anything from mischief to a motive far more sinister.
Probing another country's infrastructure in case they wanted to, at some point, if they felt they needed to, flip the switch to deactivate, to decommission our system, cause disruption.
John Bandler is a professor at John Jay who has written 2 books on cyber attacks and the people behind them. Recent attacks that shut down much of JBS meat processors and the Colonial Pipeline are just 2 recent examples. The Solar Winds attack that struck business and government online operations. Cyber criminals even hit American COVID researchers last year. Bandler says superpowers prepare for the next war, and the targets are all online.
Turn out the lights, turn out the financial infrastructure, health, transportation, utilities like oil, electricity, and all of that.
The MTA hack got very little. A spokesman said there is no evidence. Operational systems at the MTA were impacted. No employee or customer information was breached. No data loss and no changes to our vital systems. The MTA's security systems worked as designed, but it does point to a vulnerability in many systems that requires vigilance.
If they're doing these attacks with impunity and without consequences, they're going to keep doing them.
The MTA says it's unclear what the hackers wanted.
It's unclear.
It's unclear what the hackers wanted
from ransomware. Yeah. It's not unclear. They want your Bitcoin, MTA.
They want your Bitcoin. They want your data.
Now, I will say, Gons, I did specifically say BART, but I more generally said transportation infrastructure.
Yeah.
So, we were talking about in the context, how could all these hacks serve the agendas that are mounting up, not just some sort of financial agenda, but also Biden's infrastructure agenda. And in connection with Biden's infrastructure agenda, we saw the gas pipeline hack. We saw the meat industry hacks. You've got food and utilities, and transportation was next. That is a big part of what's on the menu for Biden's infrastructure bill. Now, for those who don't know, MTA is Metropolitan Transportation Authority, which I believe, the nation's largest mass transit agency that daily carries millions of people in and around New York City. On top of that, we also had ransomware attack hits ferry service to Cape Cod, Nantucket, and Martha's Vineyard. So the boats have been hacked. Hacker boat.
Yeah. I'm going to jump the gun and just say that ultimately what they want to hack is our DNA and own it and control it.
You really are jumping the gun.
It's because, ultimately what's going to happen is that, they're logically following the line here. They're going to say that human beings are part of the infrastructure, and there you go. Who owns it? Who owns the DNA? Who has the patent to it? All that stuff.
Well, I think before we get there, we're going to see some. I'm still going to reiterate our past predictions. One will have some sort of hack that endangers the home buying process. That's next on the list.
Yeah.
But then, of course, water and sewer. Those 3. We'll keep an eye out because they're going to happen soon.
Yeah, waters. Yeah, we on my list here it says clean water hack, sewer hack, and then stoplights, which is kind of the same thing as
as transportation stuff.
Yeah.
But on top of that, we also mentioned medical stuff, the medical hacks, hospital hacks. And here we got a report from news.yahoo.com about a very interesting medical company that has some other connections we'll get into.
Yep. And let's play the clip here.
It's been 2 days since Scripps Health made the jarring announcement that almost 150,000 patients may have had their personal information compromised in the cyber attack. But there were still very few answers Thursday about how much data was taken.
It's not comfortable.
Patient David Jacobson had been struggling for weeks
hold
to
on
access his
real
records.
quick.
Hold on. It's not comfortable.
And it shows a guy with a neck brace who's going to speak in a moment here. This guy's data was stolen or whatever. Come on, news!
He's in a full-on neck brace.
Full-on neck brace. It's
great clip.
Yeah.
Great clip. News.
Yeah, a little drop, but also, yeah, they almost want people to feel sorry for the hacked, and trying to make it more scary.
we should feel sorry for the hacked, but the way they dropped that little bit in there, it's like the hackers hurt this man's neck very badly, and he is very uncomfortable.
Yeah. All right, here we go. I'm going to play that segment again, and then we'll go on.
Information compromised in the cyber attack, but there were still very few answers Thursday about how much data was taken.
It's not comfortable.
Patient David Jacobson had been struggling for weeks to access his records following a neck injury. After learning this week's news about the volume of patients affected by the...
Hold on. Sorry. I said we're going to play it through, but is he uncomfortable? Is he not comfortable about his neck or about the hack?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
He's very uncomfortable. He's a very uncomfortable man, Gons.
I know, but all right. So maybe it's both. Makes it worse. The hack was bad, but also because he has a messed up neck, it just makes everything double worse.
You guessed it.
The attack, he contacted the dedicated call center Thursday for an update.
Thank you for calling the Scripps Health Incident Response Line.
I gave them a call, wanted to check and see if I was going to get a letter or if, in fact, my Social Security number had been compromised. I was told that it had not been compromised as far as they knew as of yet.
Tuesday, Scripps revealed that an unauthorized person hacked its network and got copies of documents before deploying ransomware, and that health information and personal financial information was acquired. For certain patients, this information includes one or more of their names, addresses, dates of birth, health insurance information, medical record numbers, patient account numbers, and or clinical information, such as physician name, dates of service, and or treatment information. For less than 2.5% of patients, social security numbers and driver's license numbers were also affected. And while Scripps said there's no indication that any data has been used to commit fraud, Jacobson knows he's not yet out of the woods. The hospital network reports that it still doesn't know what's inside some remaining documents that it believes were compromised by hackers, and it will likely take several months to figure that out. ABC 10 News requested an interview Thursday with a representative of the hospital to discuss the attack. A spokesperson wrote back that they are not yet granting interviews.
There you go.
Okay, there you go. So Scripps, this is an interesting hack because in regards to the Fauci emails that have recently come out, one of the emails that was receiving a lot of attention was someone named Christian Anderson, which we talked about last week last episode. And Christian Anderson spent some time. Is he currently at Scripps, or was he?
I think he is. Yeah, based on
we might want to pull up his CV there again.
Yeah, I can do it again.
What exactly was he talking to Fauci about?
He was saying that there's evidence there's evidence that the virus was engineered. That was his take. And here's the bio. For those of you watching, scripps.edu/faculty/Anderson. Faculty, Kristen G. Anderson, PhD, Professor, Department of Immunology and Microbiology, California campus. And he's got the whole thing there, the whole bio and everything. So
this story came out on June 3rd about Scripps getting hacked. When did the Fauci emails come out exactly?
That was the second, or maybe the 1st. Maybe it was June 1st.
2 days. I don't know. We're just laying out some things, not saying they're related, but it is interesting how 2 days after Christian Anderson's connection with Fauci, trying to tell Fauci that the coronavirus looks engineered, 2 days later, Scripps is hacked and causes a big old hullabaloo. Just, again, weird timeline.
Yeah. And also, a lot of these hacks, nothing seems to be, every report is like, nothing was truly compromised. It's just like the hack happened, ransomware was deployed.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how hacks work. They don't.
That's a good point.
They don't necessarily immediately take everything down. That's the part of the organization that gets hacked.
Ransomware, yeah.
Yeah,
with the we got to be clear, because there's a difference between a hack and ransomware. Right. I mean, ransomware is technically a hack, but not all hacks are ransomware. I don't remember hearing the word ransomware in that clip about the Scripps hack.
Yeah, they mentioned it.
Okay, so there you go. So it was another ransomware attack, and it looks like Scripps is going to need to get their hands on some Bitcoin.
Yeah, probably.
You know what's interesting? You know, with the recent pullback of the Bitcoin price,
yes,
it seems like the timing roughly lines up with the Bitcoin pullback and a bunch of these ransomware attacks. Because, you know, these ransomware attacks are paid in Bitcoin if the company pays it. And you would want a decreased Bitcoin price so that you receive more Bitcoin for the ransomware. And then when you're done ransomwaring, pump the price back up and booyah, your 5 million that you got from the Colonial Pipeline hack bumps up to 10 million just by, you know, by the nature of the Bitcoin price.
It's not a bad point. And we'll get into a couple other sort of angles and theories about that in relationship to the whole cyber Polygon situation with the hacks going on here.
Yeah. All right.
But did you want to actually take this Wall Street Journal one? Because I'm taking the one after.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so we're staying on topic here. Some more ransomware talk. This is coming from the Wall Street Journal. And it goes like this. The headline is FBI Director Compares Ransomware Challenge to 9/11. We got to compare everything to 9/11.
Whoa.
It's all coming together.
Protest at the Capitol building, 9/11. Coronavirus, 9/11. Ransomware, 9/11. And, you know, I joke, but really we know what's going on here, and that is tapping in to the trauma,
trauma-based mind control.
Yep, there you go. You traumatize a whole generation with 9/11, and for the rest of their lives, you have a trigger to trigger the trauma within them. So now we are using that trigger with comparison to ransomware. Let's see what they have to say. FBI Director Christopher Wray said the agency is investigating about 100 different types of ransomware, many of which trace back to actors in Russia, and compared the current spat of cyber attacks with the challenge posed by the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks. Okay, quote, "There are a lot of parallels." Is there?
Oh, you mean like how they documented how they needed a terror attack before they actually conducted the attack? Is that what you're talking about, Mr. Ray?
And how parallels on how the Twin Towers were insured for ludicrous amounts of money. Like, what was it? Shortly before the attacks, they had upped their insurance amount on it. Is that how there's parallels? Or is it parallels because you know, it's used as an excuse for starting ridiculous wars and sending the entire economy into the pits.
And I was going to say hacking into, but that's not really, well, in the literal sense there, you know, chipping away at least to our privacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Yeah. There's parallels because this will be used to take away your freedoms.
Exactly. Okay, go on.
All right. What does he really say? Let's hear. Quote, "There are a lot of parallels. There's a lot of importance and a lot of focus by us on the disruption and prevention," Mr. Ray said in an interview Thursday. Quote, "There's a shared responsibility not just across government agencies, but across private sector and even the average American." Why are we responsible for this? and why are we responsible for 9/11? I don't understand. What did I do to cause either of these things?
Seriously, that's a good point. Yeah, I like how even that's kind of the plan with everything, even with like climate change and all that, right? It's always like, it's your fault, meat eaters. It's your fault, car drivers. It's like, wait a minute, I was born into a society with cars and meat.
It's not my fault.
I didn't come up with this. Anyway, go on.
Just being used to harden the foundations of the current power structures and to turn the average man against oneself in order to be more controllable. But moving on, Mr. Ray's comments, along with his first publicly since 2 recent ransomware attacks, gripped the U.S. meat and oil and gas. Weird. Oh, I see. Meat and oil and gas industries come as senior Biden administration officials have characterized ransomware as an urgent national security threat and said they are looking at ways to disrupt the criminal ecosystem that supports the booming industry. Each of the 100 different malicious software variants are responsible for multiple ransomware attacks in the U.S., Mr. Ray said. Ransomware is a type of malicious computer code that locks up a victim network's files that hackers use to demand payment for their release, typically with digital currency like Bitcoin.
Bitcoin is pseudonymous, and it can be tracked. It's on a public ledger.
Yeah. Also, a slight dig at Bitcoin here. They did not capitalize Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think that according to some of the Bitcoin maximalists, there's Bitcoin, the capital B Bitcoin, which is like the protocol, and then Bitcoin, the lowercase b, which is more about the currency.
It's the actual currency. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Even I learn something new every show, folks.
Hey.
This week, hackers held hostage the world's largest meat processor just weeks after the operator of an essential pipeline bringing gasoline to parts of the East Coast paid about $4.4 million to regain control of its operations and restore service. Senior officials at the Federal Bureau of Investigation for years have likened the need to confront rising cyber threats to the post-9/11 scramble against international terrorism. But Mr. Ray said the wave of recent ransomware attacks has spotlighted the toll cyber attacks can have on all Americans. Quote, now realizing it can affect them when they're buying gas at the pump or buying a hamburger, I think there's a growing awareness now of just how much we're all in this fight together, Mr. Ray said. Again, there's the triggering of the 9/11 trauma on everybody who lived through it. How remember post 9/11, and it's still sort of ambient throughout society, but especially post 9/11, it was the terrorists could strike anyone at any time.
Yeah.
Any group of people, any school, any
especially
church,
airports.
Of course, if every airport, terrorism can strike any one of us. We need to work together. And yeah, they are making that comparison here where, a big company getting a ransomware attack. Now, yeah, it's not a suicide vest going off or a plane flying into your house, but it's, you'll have to pay more for a cheeseburger. Ah! It is such a sort of an insulting dig at the American way of life, but not wrong, I guess. Let's continue. While the most prominent of the recent ransomware hacks disrupted gasoline deliveries and took meat processing plants temporarily offline, they represent only a fraction of some of the 100 types of ransomware the FBI is currently investigating, Mr. Ray said. Quote, those are just two, he said, adding that each of those 100 different malicious software variants, adding that each of those 100 different malicious software variants had affected between a dozen and 100 targets. There you go. There's the connection to the coronavirus trauma.
Not just the trauma, but again, there's sort of maybe this is more of a spiritual thing than like a direct intentional thing, although there's some intentionality behind it too, I'm sure. But, we've heard a lot of talk about biohacking, and speaking to my earlier about, how they just want to control our biology and everything else, comparing software to our DNA code, and then, comparing a virus, a computer virus to a actual quote unquote virus that caused a pandemic. It's more of a subtle, I think it's like a subtle psychological way
you really got DNA on the brain, don't you?
I've just been looking into stuff. But anyway, also just as a side note, Christopher Wray, he's the guy that Trump tried to fire a bunch of times, like over his presidency. He's like, fire him, fire the man. And then he couldn't or didn't. But anyway, this guy, the name rung a bell, and that was, I remember him being, sort of a Trump target, although nothing came of it.
Yeah.
Go on.
Here we go. Quote, "The scale of this problem is one that I think the country has to come to terms with," he said. Complaints to the FBI and reports from the private sector show ransomware incidents have tripled in the past year, Mr. Ray said. While private sector estimates of the toll to the U.S. economy vary widely, companies that track ransomware generally put the cost at hundreds of millions or billions of dollars annually and say it is rapidly increasing. U.S. authorities have attributed this week's attack on JBS SA, the world's biggest meat company by sales, to a criminal ransomware gang in Russia. And the White House has said President Biden plans to bring up the problem during a summit with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Geneva, planned for June 16th. Mr. Biden said he would look closely at whether to retaliate against Russia for the attacks. Yeah, this keeps coming up. Biden figuring out if he's going to retaliate against Russia, which is, again, sort of monotonous. And as far as the whole Russia are the bad guys thing, not saying that Russia's innocent here, but, if America, the geopolitical nation state, was blamed for every criminal act an American committed, there would be world wars forever. Well, let's keep going.
That's the idea.
Yeah. In the interview, Mr. Ray singled out Russia as harboring many of the known users of ransomware. Dude, I can't help it. Again, going back to 9/11. Why did we invade Afghanistan? Why did we invade Iraq? Because they were harboring terrorists.
Yeah. In
the interview, Mr. Ray singled out Russia as harboring many of the known users of ransomware, providing a haven. Again, the haven was the same word. Afghanistan was a haven for terrorists. Anyways, providing a haven that security experts and U.S. officials have said has allowed criminal ransomware gangs to flourish throughout Eastern Europe. We're going to invade Russia. This is horrible.
I think so, or
this
something.
Is bad news.
Russia, China. All this sounds like it's getting ready for World War III.
Or if not World War III, because that's sort of a term that's used a lot for maybe too much. But I would think even worse than World War III, I think a second war on terror would be even worse. You have non-uniformed combatants who are Russian cyber gangs, and we need to spend trillions of dollars and take control of the region. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, more of a cyber war, maybe Cyber War 1.
Yeah. Ooh, Cyber War 1. Quote, "Time and time again, a huge portion of those trace back to actors in Russia. And so if the Russian government wants to show that it's serious about this issue, there's a lot of room for them to demonstrate some real progress that we're not seeing right now," Mr. Ray said. Yeah. Mr. Ray, who has led the Bureau since 2017, has about 6 years remaining on his 10-year term, and Mr. Biden has said he plans to keep Mr. Ray in the post. He has kept a low profile during his tenure as the FBI faced criticism from former President Donald Trump, who publicly and privately contemplated firing Mr. Ray. In his few public appearances during the pandemic, Mr. Ray has pushed the private sector and international community to collaborate more with the FBI to battle hackers, including those from criminal gangs and foreign intelligence services seeking information from U.S. companies and institutions. Here's the end of the article here. While the FBI has a policy of discouraging targets of such cyber attacks from paying the ransom, Mr. Ray said the agency was more interested in having companies cooperate with the Bureau in their investigations into the attacks to help piece together the puzzle of who is behind the attacks and figure out ways to thwart them. On Thursday, a senior Justice Department official issued a memorandum to U.S. attorneys' offices around the country urging all ransomware investigations to be coordinated with the task force created in April. Mr. Ray said coordination can pay off for ransomware victims and law enforcement alike. Quote, I don't want to suggest that this is the norm, but there have been instances where we've been able to work with our partners to identify the encryption keys, which then would enable a company to actually unlock their data without paying the ransom, he said. Okay, so there you go. Mr. Ray saying, hey, don't pay the ransom. We'll crack it for you, which is not an insignificant clue. We know that intelligence agencies, oh my gosh, their dream come true would be able to break any encryption that they want. And we do know that they have the most sophisticated encryption cracking technologies, mainly focused on breaking the encryption for cryptocurrencies, but I guess they can use it in a lot of other ways too. But there you go. So this ransomware scourge is triggering all of my millennial 9/11 trauma responses.
Yeah, and it's almost like the war is already taking place, in so many ways, because part of the Great Reset, a continued rollout of the problems with the current infrastructure. Then you have Biden's infrastructure plan. You have the UN 2030 agenda. You have all the, and computing being a major component to all of the modern infrastructure. Yeah. The technocracy wants to see an overhaul. It doesn't come easily. You need to poke holes in the what currently stands in order to build the new system.
Yep.
And so it makes a lot of sense to do just that, to create a modern cyber, not just 9/11, but any kind of event throughout history that has created or brought us into a type of war.
Yeah.
It's not surprising at all. And to wrap up the cyber pandemic segment here, this has been discussed. We talked about it before, but I think it's worth revisiting, and that is the Cyber Polygon event, which it took place last year. It's where Klaus Schwab said all his, ridiculous, evil things. But also, it's happening again July 9th. And it's an online event here, and they have their whole war game situation where they put together a scenario of a cyber attack, and you can play the corporations and see what kind of response you can have. There's a quote here right on the cyberpolygon.com website from Klaus Schwab, and it says, quote, "Technology and cybersecurity are of crucial importance in this COVID era. One of the most striking and exciting transformation caused by the pandemic has been our transition to the digital everything, both in our professional and also in our personal lives. I am glad that Cyber Polygon has proved itself as one of those brilliant initiatives that address the needs for developing and enhancing global cyber resilience in the fight against cybercrime and cyber attacks." And the Cyber Polygon is an annual online event which connects various global organizations to train their competencies, exchange best practices, and bring tangible results to the world community. And much like Event 201 did for COVID, this is like the cyber.
It's basically the Event 201 of cyber attacks.
Yeah. Concept of 2021, the ever-expanding digitization tightens the interconnectivity between people, companies, and countries. The secure development of ecosystems across the globe will determine the future of humanity for decades to come. And this is a big white section here. World Economic Forum supports Cyber Polygon. Cyber Polygon is an initiative of bi.zone. That's bi.zone. SBIR ecosystem supported by the World Economic Forum Center for Cybersecurity. So there you go. I mean, it's pretty straightforward here. They have some trailers. They got some cool looking things. You can go to their PDF document that describes the training and what kind of format they have. They have a red team and a blue team. The red team training organizers from bi.zone simulate the attack. They're the bad guys.
Yeah.
Red, commies. And then the blue team, the Democrats, participating teams, protect their segments of the training infrastructure. And they go through defense and response. And so there's a whole scenario, 2 scenarios with different objectives here. And, part of this also, because the World Economic Forum is part of it, we know that the World Economic Forum is also part of the entire climate change agenda, the United Nations agenda. It's all kind of tied in together. And there's a World Economic Forum article here that's headline, "It's time for investors to take a lead on climate policy." And I bring this up because I think part of the reason why oil and meat is being attacked specifically in terms of the cyber hacks or the ransomware attacks is because it's in line with the whole climate policy change that they want to make with the infrastructure. A big part of it is food. And just to go over the bullet points of this article right off the World Economic Forum website. Bullet point number 1, while many leading Wall Street firms are making climate pledges, these are not always backed up with action. We need action from Wall Street. Investment firms must now integrate public climate policy into their business objectives and activities. And bullet 3.
Wall Street do that?
Just where they put their money. Doing so will help meet net zero pledges, keep increasingly ESG-focused investors on side, and will benefit their bottom line too. And then it says here, the recent election of 2 activist directors to the board of one of the world's biggest oil and gas companies is a watershed moment for climate action. However, Wall Street's leaders have provided little more than a trickle of support for the public policies needed to accelerate dramatic market shifts and make net zero a reality. A case in point, in April, investors managing $37 trillion committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative, whereas May investors' statements for U.S. EPA methane regulations, a critical early step on the path to net zero.
Wait. $37 trillion?
Yes.
Where did this come from? Say that again.
Okay. Case in point, in April, investors managing $37 trillion committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative, whereas a May investor statement for U.S. EPA methane regulations, a critical early step on the path to net zero, garnered investor support for just a mere $5.35 trillion in assets under management.
That's a little bit of a sneaky way that they're putting that.
I know.
Investors that manage $37 trillion.
It doesn't mean that they have 37.
It doesn't mean they invested the $37 trillion, or they even have that much to invest. That's just, they could have $36.9 trillion invested in oil and coal production, and then put the 0.1 trill into something else. It's just kind of a deceptive way to phrase that.
Sure, it does say committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative, so theoretically, I guess it's supposed to be all there for that.
I'm sorry. Read it one more time. I know it's not the most important point, but I'm just curious.
Investors managing $37 trillion committed to the Net Zero Asset Manager Initiative.
Yeah, so they just committed. They didn't even invest in the initiative. They just committed to the initiative.
Yeah. Whereas a May investor statement, blah blah blah, only garnered $5.35 trillion. Now, I bring this up because, bringing it back to Bitcoin, there's an attack on Bitcoin, right? And I think this is pretty clear. Like, bad guys. Ransomware attackers use Bitcoin. And part of it is because Bitcoin kind of, I know there's some skeptics about Bitcoin and the origins and all that kind of stuff, but in the grand scheme of things, they did sort of jump the gun in terms of a worldwide digital currency, an internet-based currency, and they kind of just released it to the people. That's why the very first people that loved Bitcoin were all anarchists. The anarchists were like, this is great. This is exactly what we want to, fight governments and all this kind of stuff. And, the people that are anti-central bank and stuff, they all love Bitcoin. Mm-hmm. So that's why. It's because it's for the people and all those narratives there. But part of, I think, and this goes back to Elon Musk too. Remember Elon Musk at the beginning of the year was like, hey, Tesla's buying Bitcoin. You can buy Tesla cars with Bitcoin. And people were like, oh, this is fantastic. And then like a month later, he was like, oh, Bitcoin uses too much energy. This is not going to work out. And part of it is because Tesla were they were in profits for the first time, I think. And a lot of it came from the carbon credits or whatever. It was like the one of those initiatives that gives them money basically for being green. And so that's how they were in profit. And so I'm sure somebody got in Elon's ear and was like, you can't push Bitcoin because look at this one article that says, Bitcoin uses all this energy, blah, blah, blah. A lot of that, if you look into it, isn't exactly true the way the mainstream media reports on it.
Yeah, again, how to lie with statistics.
Yeah,
okay,
but
let's keep going.
Well, let me just explain why I brought that up. Is because I think what they want to do, and Elon actually tweeted again yesterday during Miami, Bitcoin 2021 big conference for Bitcoin. And his whole tweet was like, he misses Bitcoin. He's like crying. He made it into like a breaking up with a girl he loves meme kind of thing. And I think part of it is because they're going to start pushing a green type of cryptocurrency that they're going to try to take down Bitcoin with. And it's really going to be a battle between people who want open, free kind of internet money versus people that want or forced to use a sort of government or international institution derived cryptocurrency. And it brings us to IT News Online here. And the headline here, PlanetWatch announces the listing of the Planets token on Bitfinex exchange. PlanetWatch, a French startup which decentralizes and incentivizes environmental monitoring, announced that its utility token, Planets, will be listed on Bitfinex. Planets are the first Algorand asset, standard asset, to be supported on a major international exchange. And for those of you watching the stream here, or the video later on, the logo, Basil, the logo for PlanetWatch. First off, PlanetWatch, can't be a little more creative with the name here. Is it's an eye. It's a giant eye with like some nodes in the iris there.
Yeah.
Very straightforward and not very creative with the name either. Planets. Hey, did you get your Planets token?
It's not a good name for a cryptocurrency.
Horrible. But this is the kind of stuff they're going to start pushing. Like, oh, you want to be a company that's on the cutting edge of technology? You want to be in Planets token. No one's going to buy it. The other one I've talked about before, I think this one's a little bit more straightforward. This is UPCO2, the clean crypto, introducing the world's first tradable carbon token. And there's the logo for this one is actually a little hand peace sign. And I think it was actually TitusFrost who commented on a tweet that I sent out. Let me just pull it up here because I think it'll really give it away, explain it a little easier if I just read his tweet. Not the first Algorand being the company here that this carbon coin is based on. Carbon neutral, and so are some others. However, notice the as above, so below Masonic sign of the mysteries. There is a dark symbol and a light symbol of this peace sign of the hand. And then he also posted the photo of Baphomet, holding up that little hand signal. To it's not exactly the same, but it's close enough. And if you look at the history of the peace sign, there's all sorts of esoteric connections there too.
Yeah, but yeah, connected with the Victory Day and the connections with the occult underpinnings of the victory of World War II.
Yeah. So I think given the situation with everything taking place and the infrastructure change and the hey, whoever uses Bitcoin is bad, all those narratives, it's pushing a worldwide carbon credit tax crypto type of system. And And the reason why I brought up the human DNA type of thing is also because I'm bringing this up just because to kind of wrap up the whole cyber segment. There is a author, we've mentioned this author several times. He's known as the father of cybernetics, Norbert Wiener, and he has a book titled God and Golem Inc., a comment on certain points where cybernetics impinges on religion. And the book cover here, the original book cover, is literally the all-seeing eye, and is that the nuclear, kind of similar to a nuclear thing.
Yeah, it's almost like either a nuclear thing, or it even kind of looks like a film reel.
Yeah. And the whole idea here is that the human being will eventually become sort of the technological commodity, where the robots are sort of the slaves at first. Eventually, we will become a resource to the machines, kind of thing. This was written back in I think the 40s or 50s or something like that. So it's written half a century ago, and they were already on top of it. And so that's part of the agenda. It's not really surprising, but I just thought I'd bring it up because I think it all ties together to this longer agenda that's been going on for quite a while. And now that they have the infrastructure to tear down, to build up this stuff again, just in the same way they did with 9/11, the same way they did with Pearl Harbor, the same, any kind of war. I think we're seeing the same thing being set up here. So
yeah,
just, information to keep everyone apprised and aware of where we're headed and what we're doing in terms of, not us, but what the world elite are doing, and how long it's been planned. It's just been, it's been part of the agenda for a long time. And speaking of which, let's go into the WACCINE stuff because it ties into the whole war game stuff.
Real quick, for those who are more interested in the occult connections with World War II, just looking at Aleister Crowley and some of the things he was doing on behalf of the UK government, ritual-wise.
Yes.
You start there. It'll fall. You'll make it to the end.
Well, in Age of Deceit 3, I talk about the Macy conference, where all these cyberneticians and mathematicians and all these people got together and they did this like big seance.
Yep.
It's like not even like hidden. It's like, yeah, we did the seance, the cybernetic seance.
Skin drum.
Yeah.
All sorts of weird stuff he was doing.
Okay, so moving into WACCINEs here.
WACCINE.
A pandemic special.
And let me just run here. I'll do it quickly, Basil, and then we'll get into some of the stories. This is this document. It's been shared around. If you're paying attention, the SPARS Pandemic 2025 to 2028, a futuristic scenario for public health risk communicators. And this was the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security who published this in the year 2017. I think this was what Fauci was talking about when he's in 2017. Remember, he was like, there will be a global pandemic with this presidency or whatever it was.
He said Trump will experience a surprise pandemic
or something. Yeah. So I think he was reading or part of this event and he was all pumped about it, maybe. Okay. A couple things to point out here for those of you who may not be familiar with this document. It's out there. Again, it was published in 2017. Let me, I have some parts. I can't highlight PDFs, so I have to take notes and then look up the spots here. Okay. Generation purpose. The time frame for the scenario, the years 2025 to 2028 was selected first, and then major socioeconomic, demographic, technological, and environmental trends likely to have emerged by that period were identified. Specifically, two dominant trends likely to influence regulatory and public responses to future public health emergencies were selected. 1, varying degrees of access to information technology, and 2, varying levels of fragmentation among populations along social, political, religious, ideological, and cultural lines. The scenario matrix was then constructed, illustrating 4 possible worlds shaped by these trends, with consideration given to both constant and unpredictable driving forces. And then they chose one. What's interesting is they were planning this for 2025 to 2028. It looks like they released it early, 2020 basically. And most of the stuff in this document has already happened. I mean, it's crazy when you read through this thing that it's like, wow, they really just had it planned all the way through here. So the next segment I want to read is from page 43. It's called Lovers and Haters. And so just keep in mind, this is written as a sort of a play, right? I think it's called wargaming, where it's like they're basically they're pretending like it's actually happening. So it's written in that way. So the first paragraph talks about the CoroVax, the coronavirus, a coronavirus vaccination campaign. It says early on in the CoroVax vaccination campaign, anti-vaccination groups began emerging on social media platforms. These groups initially came from 4 primary sources. Then they kind of get into, these different groups here, the Muslims and African Americans and, whatever. With the exception of this last group, none of the anti-vaccination movements were cohesively organized initially, existing primarily in small, isolated pockets across the country. The general anti-vaccination proponents, however, existed as a core national group long before the SPARS pandemic. The SPARS is the name of the theoretical pandemic here, which became COVID-19. Following the 2015 measles outbreak in the U.S., this group united online. By 2016, they had created several primary Facebook groups and numerous Twitter accounts and began using hashtags like hashtag no vaccines for me and hashtag vaccines kill. The anti-vaccination movement migrated to ZapQ. Remember, this is 2017, okay?
Yeah.
ZapQ, that's like right around the time Q actually came out. The anti-vaccination movement migrated to ZapQ upon its emergence in 2022 due to its ability to combine feeds from across multiple platforms, including real-time text, pictures, and video messages for members, as well as select traditional media posts, such as videos, text, and streaming news feeds on a single interface, blah, blah, blah. Additionally, through ability to control group membership, these groups ensured that they would not expose a pro-vaccine, quote, propaganda from pharmaceutical companies, the federal government, or public health or medical authorities. By 2026, many core members of the anti-vaccine movement obtained their national news almost exclusively from anti-vaccine ZapQ sites. Isn't it interesting how already within this documentation about a pandemic is a internet cyber component that's just not prophesied necessarily, but like predicted or considered as part of the problem here. Last section.
Real quick, just to comment on that, one of the surprising things for me with the Fauci emails, first of all, not a lot of it was surprising. It was almost entirely uninteresting to see that, yes, we've all been right about Fauci the whole time. But there were several times where he and his buddies were sending like zero hedge articles back and forth to each other. And like we're tracking the online criticisms that they were gathering. So, we kind of have this idea in the sort of indie space that or fringe space, whatever you want to call it, that it's sort of, going under the radar, that they wouldn't be paying attention to any of this crazy stuff we're talking about. No, it's the Fauci emails showed that they are very much in tune with sort of the underground online information space.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up Fauci, because in the section, Chapter 19, SPARS Aftermath, this whole email release, Fauci leaks, all this kind of stuff, that seems to be part of the agenda as well. Here's what it says on page 66. As the pandemic tapered off, several influential politicians and agency representatives came under fire for sensationalizing the severity of the event for perceived political gain. As with many public health interventions, successful efforts to reduce the impact of the pandemic created the illusion that the event was not nearly as serious as experts suggested it would be.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? That's like exactly kind of what just happened here.
I know. I mean, again, remember, this is a hypothetical report that came out in 2017.
2017, yeah.
And they're just on top of. I mean, it shows how much calculation goes into these things and just how much they expect the public response.
Yeah. They have this theoretical President Archer. President Archer's detractors in the Republican Party seized the opportunity to publicly disparage the president and his administration's response to the pandemic, urging voters to elect, quote, a strong leader with the best interests of the American people at heart. A widespread social media movement led primarily by outspoken parents of affected children, which this document goes into like these kids that like took the vaccine and vomited, and that video went viral and all this kind of stuff, coupled with widespread distrust of Big Pharma, supported the narrative that the development of SPARS MCM, which is the medical countermeasures, was unnecessary and driven by a few profit-seeking individuals. Conspiracy theories also proliferated across social media, suggesting that the virus had been purposely created and introduced to the population by drug companies, or that it had escaped from a government lab secretly testing bioweapons. And again, the link to this document will be in the show notes at canarycrynewstalk.com. If you read it, it's crazy. It just reads like the exact thing of what we've been living. It's like, oh, okay, they just took this script and, just laid it out in reality. One little section here. As the investigators grew in intensity, several high-ranking officials at the CDC and FDA were forced to step down and withdraw from government in order to, quote, spend more time with their families.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
All the way down. So this is literally just a script.
Oh, it's a complete script.
It's just
unreal.
A full-on script that they followed through this pandemic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That is spooky,
and look
man.
at this, exhausted employees of these agencies. Remember what they said about Fauci
a
couple days ago?
Fauci's just so tired, so exhausted.
Many of whom worked long 6 or 7 days a week throughout the pandemic simply wanted to put the whole response behind them. Little desire remained on the part of decision makers or those who served in the trenches during the response to rehash the events of the past several years.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a script. They just wrote out the script in 2017. That is crazy. And they're trying to present it as like, oh, they played this little war game and this is what happened. And, they just knew it would happen because they played this Dungeons and Dragons campaign in 2017. But it's also got the weird connection with like the hive mind stuff, the big data conglomeration of Oracle, AI Oracle stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's either an expression of sort of the big data Oracle technocracy idea that happened to play out, or a script that they wrote, or maybe a mixture of both. Yeah, maybe the big data gets fed in, and then that writes the script for how to respond.
Yeah, it's pretty wild how they were able to just know so much in 2017 in this hypothetical scenario. Yeah,
it really is incredible.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's check in with our buddies Francis Collins and Daddy Fauci.
It's so three amigos. Third amigo.
Yeah, it's the three amigos. It's funny, just to make another kind of random connection here. We kind of tongue-in-cheek call these war games they play Dungeons and Dragons campaigns, because that's what it is. They're sort of just like role-play tabletop games that they do, or at least that's what they claim it to be.
Yeah.
And traditionally, now tabletop role-playing games have been going through a renaissance in the past few years, but traditionally the idea is that Dungeons and Dragons is for nerds. And of course, that's the three amigos right there. Francis Collins, Daddy Fauci, and Bill Gates.
Two down, one to go. really, if you think
nerdiest
about it.
fellows in the world. That's true. Francis Collins has got to be looking over his shoulder, getting pretty worried after the downfall of Gates and now Fauci under fire. All right, so bringing this article from the Gateway Pundit, sort of infamous conservative outlet here, but you know what? Nobody else was really talking about it, so let's see what they got to say. This is from the GatewayPundit.com. The headline, Dr. Fauci's boss refutes his claims, admits NIH was funding Wuhan lab, and, quote, we had no control over what they were doing. Uh-oh. In May, Senator Rand Paul confronted Dr. Tony Fauci.
Tony.
Funny, they call him Tony. Yeah. After the emails came out where we see that Anthony Fauci has been signing all of his emails Tony, it's like, this guy just really wants to be called Tony, so I guess we'll call him Tony. Maybe that's his now this is from Gateway Pundit, so it's not necessarily sort of an expression of the mainstream media hive mind, but it would be interesting to see if the mainstream starts calling him Tony, because it's kind of like it would almost signal like the fall from grace, like where before he was Dr. Anthony Fauci. But changing the name to Tony Fauci is kind of like a term of shame or familiarity.
You know what's interesting?
Mm-hmm.
This is not an indictment against anybody named Tony or Anthony. One of the definitions for Tony is a medallion awarded annually by a professional organization for notable achievements in the theater, which, the Tony Awards.
Right.
But it's just, maybe he's just a good actor too.
He's just, yeah, okay, good catch. In May, Senator Rand Paul confronted Dr. Tony Fauci for funding gain-of-function research in the U.S. and then later at a lab in Wuhan, China. Dr. Fauci refuted the claims under oath despite the fact that there are documents that prove the U.S. was funding the Wuhan lab under his direction. As the Gateway Pundit has reported since early 2020, the Wuhan lab was likely the source of the coronavirus outbreak, and Dr. Fauci was funding the lab for years. On Wednesday, Dr. Francis Collins, the director of the National Institute of Health and Dr. Fauci's boss, admitted to radio host Hugh Hewitt that the U.S. collaborated with the Wuhan Virology Laboratory. Oops. And here's the block quote here. Well, when we give a grant, Hugh, it has terms attached to it of what it is that the grantee is supposed to be doing with those funds. And we require annual reports to see whether that, in fact, is what they have been doing. And we trust the grantee to be honest and not deceptive. The grant funds that went to Wuhan, which were a subcontract from EcoHealth, were very specifically aimed to try to categorize viruses that they could isolate from bats in Chinese caves, which we had a good reason to want to know more about, given SARS and MERS that had come out of there. And so we basically had those criteria attached to the grant. And of course, the amount of money that we were providing to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, I'm sure, was a tiny fraction of their total funding. And we had no control over what else they were doing with those funds. That's another thing we'd like to know more about, and an investigation might potentially tell us. Collins goes on to admit that the Chinese Communist Party is, in fact, involved in the Wuhan lab, but attempts to play down their influence. So there you go. He's said it right there. After Fauci first got caught lying, saying he didn't fund it, now Fauci's boss is coming out and being like, yeah, I mean, we gave him the money, and we really have no idea what they used the money for. But, I mean, how would anybody know? Really?
This is my gut feeling. I don't know. But Dr. Francis Collins comes off to me as a guy he's like trying to be honest and genuine. He's part of the Vatican science group, whatever. You'd have to be a little bit, I think you have to be it's either one or the other when people are involved in like high level Jesuit kind of stuff, right? Or New World Order Illuminati. You're either well aware of your intentions to like squash other humans around you, or you're super naive and you just don't realize that you're part of this infrastructure for the global elite or whatever it is. I feel like Francis
both
Collins.
Are possible.
Both are. I think it happens all the time that both are possible.
Yeah.
Or that both, there's different people that, different kinds of people in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's just my opinion, but Francis Collins comes off to me as the latter. That he's like completely kind of ignorant of like the greater evil infrastructure, and he's just like, yeah. And then when all this started coming out, he was just kind of, oh well, yeah. So he's trying to be honest. He's kind of shooting himself in the foot while doing it. So
no, it's true. He kind of does come off a little bumbling.
Yeah,
just like a little bit. He comes off as sort of an innocent idiot a bit,
which could be that he's actually super evil.
Could
and,
be
he's
the
really
strategy.
good at the play,
means he's the smartest one in the bunch, probably. Yeah. Whereas Bill Gates and Fauci come off as like evil geniuses,
little trolls.
Yeah, sort of conniving, planning, scheming.
Yeah.
Self-aware type of folk, wriggling themselves in and out of their web of lies. Francis Collins just is sort of like, yep, oh yeah, we gave him money. What's the big deal?
That's exactly how he sounds too. It's a really great impression. Remember, Dr. Francis Collins was also the one who like plays guitar and like has these little folk songs about like his projects or something like that.
It's totally, yes. He's sort of got the totally different vibe from the rest of them.
Let me just play this to see if this resonates with anybody. This is Francis Collins. Somewhere past the pandemic.
Somewhere past the pandemic, when we're free.
Oh my gosh.
There's a life I remember, full of activity. Somewhere past the pandemic, quarantine, we'll all stay well and healthy thanks to a safe vaccine.
Oh, and there it is. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I had not heard that one before.
Oh, this is
I've
just...
seen some other little clips of him playing his guitar. Wow. He really does come across like he shouldn't be the head of the nation's National Institute of Health. He seems like he should be like reading to school children or like volunteering at a library.
Yeah, yes, exactly. And on his guitar, he's got a little acoustic guitar here. On the fretboard is a DNA strand.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, he might be the evil genius of the whole thing.
I know, he comes off as this innocent, like,
he
folk
is the
singer.
Vatican guy.
He is the Vatican guy. Yeah, he's part of the Vatican science, whatever. He's won some award last year. Yeah, he's definitely he might be immune to the whole thing because he's part of the, he's got the Vatican Jesuit backup, although none of these guys are immune. Eventually they're all going to be thrown under the bus, but
no, they're all disposable.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that is amazing.
That, that's a catchy tune though. I got to admit, that's really, it's written like, it's almost like, it's like a parody. That's what someone making fun of the whole thing would write, but anyway.
Well, yeah, it's like something that Pfizer would pay for a TikToker to do.
I'm surprised he didn't put it on TikTok. He would have probably gone viral.
He probably did put it on TikTok.
Nobody cared. China didn't help him.
Nobody cared. Yeah, China deleted it. Said, "Oh no, this is too much. You're going to give yourself away."
Yeah. Well, also, just moving on here, this is part of the whole vaccine agenda here.
I want to die or be decapacitated. I want to be vaccinated.
This was published on the Lancet.com. Tackling missed opportunities for vaccination in a new era of immunization. Of course, immunization is spelled with the S, immunization.
Oh, good.
I think that's UK, right? Or is that?
I don't know. I've never encountered that spelling before. Immunization. Yeah, that looks right.
Yeah, but I think it's in America, it's spelled with a Z, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it could be. I don't know. I'm going to look it up while you read this.
The launch of the Immunization Agenda 2030, that's IA2030, marks the beginning. Yeah, I know. Marks the beginning of a new era.
We will launch a new age
for accelerating immunization progress globally. In many ways, the COVID-19 pandemic, with its far-reaching disruption of routine immunization services, marks a turning point in this transition. The editors aptly reflect on this important transition and the lessons learned in the past decades. Importantly, the editorial identifies the growing challenges of vaccine hesitancy, misinformation, inequitable access, political inaction, and commercial interest protection as priority issues to be tackled in this new IA 2030 era.
Whoa.
In addition to these challenges, we make a case for the prioritization of missed opportunities for vaccination. A missed opportunity for vaccination refers to any contact with healthcare services by an individual who is eligible for vaccination, which does not result in the person receiving either one or both of the vaccine doses for which they are eligible.
Yeah, see, this is spooky.
It is super spooky.
Just the way that they are framing this, that it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah,
if you go to the doctor for whatever and you don't get vaccinated while you're there, that was a failure of the system.
Yeah,
is what they're trying to say here, which is pretty incredible. And we've gotten notes from plenty of producers who have told us about, they go to their doctor, they go to the pharmacy or whatever, and just get shamed for not having the vaccination and not getting it then and there when that was not the reason that they came. This idea, the IA 2030 immunization agenda, is thoroughly soaked through the population of healthcare workers.
Yeah. One more paragraph here. Global immunization coverage has undeniably stalled below the targets of the Global Vaccine Action Plan. Progress has been further slowed by the disruption to routine immunization services worldwide as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Now, real quick, this is where it gets weird.
It is weird. It's like, because of the pandemic, we've slowed down our vaccines, but also the vaccines. Go ahead.
Just to read it again. No, you nailed it, but just to read it again. Progress has been further slowed by the disruption to routine immunization services worldwide as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. So our plan to immunize the world was slowed down because of a pandemic that required immunization. It is so backwards and weird.
I'm telling you, man, it's all about the DNA control.
For this. Yeah, keep going.
Prevalence of missed opportunities for vaccination varies within and between countries, reaching 89% in some settings. Thus, addressing missed opportunities for vaccination has become imperative for attaining unmet aspirations in the Global Vaccine Action Plan.
Aspirations.
I know. And for providing catch-up vaccinations to undo the pandemic's damaging impact on immunization progress.
Now, they are talking about, I'm looking at some of the references here. So it seems, without explanation in the write-up here, they switch from talking about vaccination for COVID-19 to your routine vaccinations. At least 80 million children under 1 at risk of diseases such as diphtheria, measles, and polio as COVID-19 disrupts routine vaccination efforts, warn Gavi, WHO, and UNICEF. Oh, great. So yeah, they're saying COVID has slowed down vaccinations of other routine vaccinations, I guess. Which again,
makes sense.
It does, but they don't say that. I had to go into the references to find that point. It's just weird that they didn't, I don't know, just say what they're trying to say.
In line with its fourth strategic priority, what is that, the fourth industrial revolution? Fulfilling IA 2030's vision will require a sound understanding of the burden of missed opportunities for vaccination and its multidimensional determinants at national and subnational levels, instituting context-appropriate remedial measures and periodically monitoring progress and adapting corrective interventions.
Wow.
Like,
yeah.
Holy cow.
Basically, they're just kicking it into high gear to not only try to vaccinate everybody with COVID-19, but also play catch up with all these other routine vaccinations.
Yeah.
Just keep the needles flying, baby.
And I like the very last sentence here, just in a different paragraph. We declare no competing interests, which is to say, we are completely loyal to the New World Order.
We declare no competing interests. Wow, that must be some sort of mandatory thing that they write in there. Yeah. What a weird, we declare no competing interests. All right. Well, let's keep moving then.
Okay.
One last one before we get into some other fun stuff. This is dailymail.co.uk. The headline, Chinese military engineered mice with humanized lungs in 2019 to test viruses on them, just months before the pandemic erupted.
Welcome to Chinese News!
Medical researchers with the Chinese Army engineered mice with humanized lungs in 2019 to test viruses on them. It has been reported. It has been reported. So it is reported. So it shall be. Yeah, okay, good. We got some chimera mice mixed in with the COVID story here. The mice, developed using CRISPR gene editing technology, were mentioned in an April 2020 study which researched their susceptibility to SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes the COVID-19 illness. Vanity Fair revealed in its bombshell investigation.
Vanity Fair, again, just really doing some heavy-duty journalism.
Weird that Vanity Fair sticking their noses in places other than the fashion industry, but okay. Of the study's 23 co-authors, 11 of them worked for the Academy of Military Medical Sciences, the medical research institute for the Chinese Army. Interesting, 23 and 11. Two sort of significant occult numbers there.
Oh, yeah, big time.
Investigators with the U.S. National Security Council researching the origins of the pandemic determined that the mice referenced in the study were created in the summer of 2019, just months before the emergence of the pandemic. The National Security Council investigators also reportedly believed they had uncovered important evidence supporting the theory that COVID-19 had leaked from a lab and began reaching out to other federal agencies, Vanity Fair reported. Quote, we were dismissed. The response was very negative, said Anthony Ruggiero, the senior director at the National Security Council. Just for some context regarding the vote that just happened about the human chimera hybrid bill that got struck down by the Democrats.
That's right.
And also Fauci's love of chimeras and gain-of-function research.
Yeah.
He's a huge fan of both of those things, and that's part of the motivation why he had to fund the Wuhan lab, is because over there you can do gain-of-function research, you can use chimeras, which the U.S. labs are not allowed to do.
In fact, some people think Fauci is a mouse-human hybrid.
He does have mousy features. But let's keep going. Shi Jingli, the Wuhan Institute of Virology lead researcher on the coronaviruses known as the Batwoman for her research on bat viruses, appears to have tested at least 2 novel coronaviruses on humanized mice in the last 3 years. Vanity Fair also revealed, citing comments she made to a scientific journal and grant information. Wow. Okay, these poor mice, these humanized mice got coronavirus tested on them at the Wuhan lab. This just doesn't stop, does it?
No.
She has refuted claims that COVID-19 leaked from a lab at the Wuhan Institute of Virology and that the facility conducts military research. However, she was interviewed in a Scientific American article first published in March 2020, in which she recounted how she frantically went through her own lab's records from the past few years to check for any mishandling of experimental materials, especially during disposal. She was relieved when none of the genetic sequences from patients with COVID-19 matched those of viruses her team had sampled from bat caves. Quote, "That really took a load off my mind. I had not slept a wink for days," she told the outlet. Interesting. They might get into this right now, but as we know, the coronavirus that made its way around the world does not match the bat cave coronaviruses either, which is part of the reason why they think it was engineered and not a natural bat coronavirus. So this little part here where she's like, "Oh, okay, there was no match. Good. I'm innocent." It's like, well, not quite how this works, but okay. In January, the State Department released a fact sheet slamming the Chinese Communist Party of systematically preventing a transparent and thorough investigation of the COVID-19 pandemic's origin. The State Department acknowledged in a fact sheet at the time that the virus could have emerged naturally from human contact with infected animals. Quote, "Alternatively, a laboratory accident could resemble a natural outbreak if the initial exposure included only a few individuals and was compounded by asymptomatic infection," the fact sheet reads. Could have been. The State Department noted that the Wuhan Institute of Virology has collaborated on publications and secret projects with China's military while presenting itself as a civilian institution. The WIV has engaged in classified research, including laboratory animal experiments on behalf of the Chinese military since at least 2017. Wow, so 2017 rearing its ugly head again.
Yep.
What were we doing in 2017 while Fauci was writing the script for the pandemic and
I think we were
this
doing
Chinese
this show.
lady was creating the virus?
I'm pretty sure we were doing this show, and
yeah, we were
reporting
just in our second year of doing this show.
Yeah.
Okay. Scrolling down, Bloomberg reported that China later denounced the State Department's fact sheet as full of fallacies and the last madness of Mr. Lies, Mike Pompeo, the former Secretary of State.
Wow,
wow. Full of fallacies, the last madness of Mr. Lies. That is a great book title.
It does sound like a.
That is excellent. Full of fallacies, the last madness of Mr. Lies. We got to remember that. The Vanity Fair report also detailed in length other evidence that supports the lab leak theory while detailing how U.S. investigation into COVID-19's origins have been impeded from investigating that theory. And as the Daily Mail does, it goes on and on and on for about 100 more paragraphs. I've noticed a thing with Daily Mail. They will start, and it's good for them. It's not quite good for the show because we just can't handle these long articles. But they start out with the headline, "Humanized mice used in coronavirus Chinese experiments." And they give you, about 10 paragraphs of it. But then they spend 100 paragraphs working backwards in time.
Mm-hmm.
Piece by piece to connect all the dots all the way to, all the way to today, which is interesting. I mean, even down here at the bottom, they go into Fauci's funding of the Wuhan lab, et cetera, et cetera.
It's all the modern SEO strategies, I guess.
Yeah, it certainly helps with SEO, but also, it's kind of a good way of like giving people, we have the full picture. We've been putting the full picture together since this all started. But for somebody who hasn't had all the dots connected for them, the Daily Mail does it in every single article, which is kind of like It's kind of annoying because it's kind of what we do, but they just do it in article form. So, if you get tricked into reading more than 10 paragraphs in a Daily Mail article, we're just repeating news from like a year ago that we already knew. Yeah. But there you go. Human mice chimeras being used in the Wuhan lab, specifically having coronaviruses tested on them. It's got the chimeras. It's got the gain of function research. It's got the Fauci funding. It's all coming together.
Excellent. Oh, you want me to play that jingle? Hold on. I have to find it. Where is it? I'm not used to having this new one here.
It's okay. I was just throwing it out there in case you had it.
Well, I do. I'm just not paying attention.
It's all coming together.
There it is. All right. Anything else on that?
I think that's all. We should break.
Uh-oh. Did the mice get you?
My mice lungs are failing me.
Your mouse lungs.
I need to.
All right. Let's take a little break and celebrate some producers.
It's break time!
Come on, take a break, folks. All right, we're just going to take a short little break, but don't go anywhere, because after the break, we're getting into some politics. We got some Biden-China news, talking about Trump and his Trump and his Facebook situation. Also, going to be talking about some homeschooling news, which I found very interesting, and I know we got a lot of homeschoolers out there, so stick around for that. And then, of course, we'll be ending with a Nephilim update. But before that, we want to take a second and thank some of our producers, because we are so grateful to them for keeping the show going. You might notice, folks, no advertisements, no affiliate codes, no super mail enhancement supplements being sold here. No. We have, for better or for worse, divested ourselves from the traditional funding models that are a bit problematic for a number of reasons. First of all, we get it. We understand some people are triggered right now that we're going to be thanking some people for supporting the show, but I will encourage you to stick around, because within these breaks is tons of awesome content. We learned that over the past few episodes. Some of the best content and info that you might not know comes during these breaks. And we want to thank our producers, because they make the show going. These are the people that make the show happen and keep the show free and mind control free for the rest of us. So thank you very much. And as usual, I want to talk a little bit about the value for value model. It's very simple. It works like this. We do the show. We do it 3 times a week. We do our very darndest to make it good and to bring you stuff that you either won't get anywhere else, or you would have to spend 5 straight days reading articles to find the stuff, or go into just somebody else's weird blog that you probably shouldn't be taking as full truth. We walk through it with you, and it's a revolution is what it is, and we are absent of advertising, because advertising is a form of mind control. And I know that some people would rather watch an advertisement for Swiffer WetJet or some sort of underwear subscription, because you've been trained to enjoy those things. In fact, we've been trained that if we watch advertisement, it means we're getting something for free. Well, it's not free, folks. In fact, it's even worse than not free, because you are being turned into the product. Any piece of media out there that sustains itself by gaining your attention and your trust and transmuting that highly valuable resource into fiat currency. They might be trying their best, and I understand it's a hard world out there, but that is there's something morally wrong with that we cannot get past. So we're on the value for value model, which does not monetize your attention, but it does kind of provide a paradigm shifting opportunity for you to say, oh, I get it. I'm not the product in this case. So instead, if I trust and enjoy, if I'm entertained by this program, I will pitch in to make it happen. And you'll gain some ownership. You'll feel some ownership. You'll feel some control, some participation with the community. And it's a good feeling. And we got some people to thank. Anything to add, Gons?
No, I think you did a pretty good job there. Sorry, I was looking back into some archives of our show here, and I just got kind of lost in a trail of episode titles and topics that we've covered over the years.
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah, and
we've only been able to do that over the years because of the support of our producers. Are you ready to thank some of them?
Yes.
Okay. Here we go. Remember to give a rousing round of applause, put these people on your prayer lists, and just generally be thankful for them because they are the ones who make this show possible. First of all, there's a few ways to become a producer of the show. The first way is by heading over to patreon.com/CCNT. That's patreon.com/CCNT for Canary Cry News Talk. You'll be happy to know, well, I won't be happy, but for those who are itching to get to the stories, we'll be happy to know no new producers over on the Patreon. Now, we do have another Patreon. It's called patreon.com/Canary Cry Radio. I know it can be confusing, but for those who are new, Canary Cry Radio is a different show than what you are listening to now. You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Canary Cry Radio is an interview-style show we've been doing since 2012. We highly recommend you go check it out because there's tons of great episodes and interviews with authors and scholars and cool people who, it's a great way to lay down a firm foundation of the worldview that we operate from here. And I think you'll really like it. So go check out Canary Cry Radio. But some people come in at patreon.com/Canary Cry Radio. And we got a couple here. First of all, Gons, are you ready?
Yes. I said I was ready before. Why did you ask again?
I'm just double checking. You could be lost on another Google black hole of looking through things.
I don't Google hole.
I got to keep you on your toes, man. Don't act like that's weird. So let's start off by thanking producer Patreon account of the year coming on. Thank you very much. He's back. Patreon account of the year. Thank you for coming back. We're glad to have you. Comes in with $3.22 on a monthly basis. 322, our Skull and Bones producer for today. Yes. Next up, we have producer Mackle G.
Thank you, producer Mackle.
Thank you very much. Producer Mackle G coming in with $5.11 a month. What is our 511 producership?
I think that is the Ephesians 5:11.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mackle. Now, here's the thing, folks. That concludes our Patreon producership list. But a lot of people don't like Patreon, and for plenty of reasons. You're allowed to not like Patreon, and that's okay. We support you. That's why we have canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right, canarycryradio.com/support. Go there. It's a fun time. And over there, you can become a producer in all sorts of fun ways. There's cryptocurrency options. And if you want to come in and become a monthly producer of the show, a nice little set it and forget it option, you can do that by becoming a monthly producer. But here's the thing. If commitment is not your thing, you can go ahead and make a one-time producership in any amount you like. The freedom we offer is incredible. You can also read about the value for value model there. Check out the Canary Cry Roundtable of Knights and Dames, all sorts coming in on the PayPal.
We have many people who are recurring producers. Thank you very much to all of you out there. And by the way, if you need to cancel, I think there's a way to do it, on your end. You don't have to email us and ask us to cancel.
Yeah.
Anyway,
had a little hiccup there. Somebody didn't know they could cancel it themselves. But
very
we got
upset.
Got it.
Very upset that we.
Yeah, we're not trying to trap anybody or anything, but just know that it's faster and easier if you just cancel it yourself. But don't do that. You don't need to do that.
Don't do it if you don't have to. All right. First up, we have producer. This is our executive producer for episode What are we on? 346.
346.
And that is producer Bush Protector is Gen X, baby.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, producer Bush Protector is Gen X, baby. That's a full name there. Now, thank you very much. Does Bush Protector have a note or anything?
Nope, I didn't see a note, but I think the note is in the name. That is always different.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay. And I don't know what this number means, but thank you very much. Bush Protector is Gen X, baby. Comes in with an executive producership at $134.80.
All right.
Yeah. Bush Protector is Bush Protector a knight already?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. You got to be getting close, Bush Protector.
Yeah, you should check
All
up
right.
on
Send
that.
us, check your accounting. Let us know.
Yeah. All right. Next up, we have producer Igor K.
Woo! Thank you very much, producer Igor, coming in with, is this Igorius?
It's Igorius.
Igorius, yay. Coming in with $34.60. That's the 346 show producership. And thank you very much, Igorius. I think he's one of our European producers.
Yeah, with
or
a
at least
smiley face.
He's over there a lot. I don't know.
We think.
Who knows?
Allegedly. Thank you, producer Igorius. Appreciate it. Next up, we have producer Arnold W.
Thank you very much. Producer Arnold W. coming in with $33.33. Illuminati Handler producership. Thank you very much, Illuminati Handler Arnold.
Yes, and I don't think he had a note, but he spoke to us subliminally with his handlership.
He did great job. Now execute Order 66. And more flippy updates, please.
All right. Thank you, producer Arnold. Next up, we have producer Cherie.
Thank you very much. Producer Cherie H coming in with 3333, another Illuminati handler here, and sends a note. Listen up, producers. Hello, fellow Canarians. I need to call on the producers today to pray for my coworker, Lee. Her fur baby, Layla, has been missing for 9 days. Oh, gosh, that breaks my heart. That is a tough thing. Yes, notoriously, Monty 1 disappeared for a couple days, and it was the roughest. So yes, we'll put Lee on the prayer list there. All producers out there, listen up. We're praying for Lee and her fur baby Layla. It has been tremendously hard on her, and understandably so. Please pray that they'll find out the truth about what has happened, whatever that might be. Thanks. Yes, and I'll add, we'll just pray that Layla shows back up.
Yeah, we'll pray that Layla is, anytime, when I was growing up, anytime my parents always had pet cats, and they would disappear, they'd come back, usually pregnant. So.
That's a good point. Yeah. Did I told the story about when Monty disappeared, right?
Did he come back with a new family?
No, he was stuck in a bush, fully climbed into a bush, and was stuck there for like 2 days. Oh. And when I say stuck, fully stuck, it was like a briar patch situation.
Oh, wow.
Just frozen in one spot for like 2 days. And I kept hearing him meowing out there. And I kept looking around, and could not find him. He was deep in the bush, the briar patch. I stuck my arm in there. It was completely bloody. Could not get out, but it was a big relief to find him.
You thought the ghost of Monty had come haunt you every day and speak to you?
All day for 2 days, I would hear the meow, and I would go. I'm basically going around this bush. It was so dense, like you couldn't think that something could get in there. And he got in there, and he just got stuck, couldn't get out. So there you go. I guess in one way I was grateful because I kept him in one spot, He couldn't wander. He was just stuck there. It was very sad, but yes, heartbroken when these cats and dogs disappear for a while.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going.
Next up, we have producer Debbie W.
Debbie Dubs.
Debbie Dubs. That's a good one. I like that.
That's your new name, Debbie Dubs. Coming in with $33. Illuminati handler.
Another Illuminati handler.
A lot of Illuminati handlers today. I'm stoked.
Yeah. All right, thank you, Debbie Dub. Next up, we have Daniel from Down Under.
Oh, don't ask questions. Just take the jab. Coming in with $30. Note here, I'm a longtime listener since the very beginning of Canary Cry Radio, before CCNT. Ooh, 2012 listener here. Keep spreading your positive vibes, Gazel and Bonds. Daniel from Down Under. Thank you very much for being a producer and for sticking with us for so long there. Down in, I'm assuming means Australia.
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Is there somewhere under Australia? No.
I don't know. Depends on what shape you think the
Antarctica?
Earth is. Yeah, maybe he's from Hades itself.
Oh, good point. Down under. That could be very triggering to the flat earthers.
All right. Thank you, Daniel from Down Under. Appreciate it.
Thanks, buddy.
Next up, watch out for those kangaroos. Next up, we have producer Johnson and Sons.
Thank you very much. Watch out for kangaroos and also the mice. The mice plague is going on down in Australia.
Ooh. Maybe they're genetically engineered.
Oh, human lung mice released from a Chinese lab. Thank you, Johnson and Sons, coming in $25.75, praying that we can love our brothers and sisters as we love ourselves in Jesus' name. Amen, Johnson and Sons. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for that. Next up, we have producer Bill L.
Thank you very much, Bill L. Coming in $15.90, a Fauci Dajic. Oh, A for Fauci Dajic. Okay, so that's Fauci and Peter Dajic of EcoHealth Alliance. Quote, where did that polybasic PRRA furin cleavage site come from? Chris Martinson. That's a quote from Chris Martinson. Love the show. You know who Chris Martinson is?
This quote, I think it came from some show out there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Chris Martinson show, maybe.
Okay, I'll have to check out Chris Martinson. I believe now, just from our own experience looking into this stuff, the polybasic PRRA furin cleavage site is I can't tell if this is a joke that Chris Martinson has made because the word cleavage is funny.
No, I think
this has to do with the mechanics of the coronavirus that indicates that it's engineered, correct?
Yeah. So Peak Prosperity, is that the name of it looks like this is the blog by Chris Martinson and Adam Taggart. I did hear about this, the whole, the concept of the what's it called? Furin.
Polybasic PRRA furin cleavage site.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe is this like, I don't know, signaling to his handlers? Bill L.
I don't know, but we need to look into it.
Yeah.
Like Bill L says. Well, yeah, I'm trying to, that phrase is dinging a bell. I think that's the mechanism that they think shows conclusively that it's an engineered virus.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but that's just what's dinging a bell.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Bill L, for your producership, and we will look into this Chris Martinson fella.
Will do. Thank you, Bill L. Next up, we have producer Sir Casey, the Shield Knight.
Thank you very much, Sir Casey, the Shield Knight. You're the man. And Sir Casey is on a streak.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't see a streak number next to it, but you are on a streak.
I think he came in late, so I forgot to put it on there.
They're on a streak.
Oh, yeah, 16 episodes for Sir Casey. Yeah, my goodness. All right, thank you very much.
Leaving the firmament. Visiting the waters above the waters. All right, next up we have Malik W.
Hey, he's back. Thank you very much, producer Malik.
Is he on a streak?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you for that, producer Malik. No note here. Next up we have James H.
There he is, and James H is on a streak.
They're on a streak.
14 episodes in a row, still nipping at the heels of Sir Casey, but right behind him.
All right. I still fantasize that this is James Hetfield, the lead singer of Metallica.
It is. We know that for a fact.
All right. Thank you, producer James H. Next up, we have Killer Whale Channel.
There he is, coming in with $9.33. He says, Killer Whale here. Great work, guys. I changed the name on my PayPal account to avoid confusion. Okay, very good. I also joined your forum/Discord. Okay, getting connected. Love it. I donated 3 different times, $9.33 twice and $6.33 once, but didn't hear my name on the last one. No biggie. Here's another. Thank you very much, Killer Whale Channel. I believe we did figure this out last episode. You may have missed it. That first producership there, you sent that straight to Gonz's Face Like the Sun YouTube, which is great. We just didn't know to look there. But we got you on the 633, and thank you again for this 933. You're the man, Killer Whale.
Appreciate it, Killer Whale Channel.
Mm-hmm.
The Killer Whale. Hopefully it's not killing whales. Especially crypto whales. All right, moving on.
Okay.
Next up, producer Saul A.
There he is, Saul A. coming in. Good to see you again, buddy. You got, he has a note here. A pocket full of 7s for both of you.
Yeah, doubling up.
That's right. So he came in with 2 pocket full of 7s. That's $7.77.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Saul to Paul in the chat. All right, thank you, producer Saul. Next up, we have producer Ciara.
Ciara, thank you very much. And Ciara's on a 3-episode streak.
They're on a streak.
And you know what that means. That's right. Producer Ciara's heating up.
Good job.
Thanks.
Next up, I was telling good job to Ciara, not you.
Oh.
taking her credit. Next up, we have producer Stefan M.
Thank you very much, producer Stefan M. Is this a Steven or a Stefan? Do we know?
I'm going to say Stefan.
Okay,
Anytime I see a PH, I'm just going to go with Stefan.
All right, I'll say Steven.
Otherwise.
This is both. And coming in with $3.46 for the show number.
That's correct. That's correct. Mm-hmm. Next up, we have Scott K.
Woo! Scott K is on an 8-episode streak. Thank you very much, Scott K. Coming in with the 346 as well.
And of course, next up, Tristan H.
Oh yeah, and keep that trigger finger going, Gons, because Tristan's on a streak.
They're on a streak.
Thank you very much. 5 episodes, 346. Tristan, thank you for coming in.
And next up, we have producer Fact Checker Bot.
Booyah. Producer Fact Checker Bot, good to see you again. Came in with 345 with a note that says, I had to donate for all those children who can count to 5. So this was a late show number producership for last episode. Still counts, still good. Thank you very much, Fact Checker Bot.
Which, by the way, just real quick, there was an article that's in the the additional stories segment or section of the show notes, and it was about AI and AI taking over all these jobs and stuff. The very first job it's taken over, accountants. Maybe that's why it was such a low number. Yeah, accountants was like the number 1 job that AI is taking over. So.
Oh, I did not know that. That's very interesting, and that makes more sense than almost anything. Sorry, accountants, but you know what? I will say this: it was only after the show that we got all these notes, but a lot of accountants listen to the show, and they were grateful, but also sad that it's kind of is a low showing for last episode. But accountants were on your side, buddy.
We didn't dedicate this show to anybody, did we?
No, we didn't, because it doesn't work. Nobody likes it.
Nobody likes it.
It's failed every single time. So notice we didn't dedicate this one, and we've got a great producership showing. So I don't know.
Next up, last of the PayPal producers, producer Kimberly W.
Thank you very much, Kim W. Coming in with $3.30, and this is the streak that she's, or not, I forget if it was a streak or it's just the themed. She's doing themed producerships of 330 for, and she's sending in Bible verses that regard the perseverance of the saints. And this one is Matthew 24:12. And because lawlessness will abound, the love of many will grow cold. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. There we go. Amen. Thank you very much, Kimberly W.
All right.
Okay, Gons, we got to move into something cool here. Producer Paul Green, who is the son of a Dame Sissy Sue of Sassafras, put out the Producer logo contest last week.
That's right.
And today it concludes. Whee! And we got a bunch of great showings for the art for the contest, the Producers logo contest. For those who don't know, the Producers is our Canary Cry prayer group, and they are fervently interceding for the show and the producers and the listeners and everything, and cats, lost cats and dogs. We love them very much, and producer Paul Green put up a bounty for a logo or a coat of arms for the Producers, and made available 3 producerships in the name of the first, second, and third place creators of the logos. So here we go. I'm just going to jump right into a note from Paul Green here, and we'll be taking a look at the winners. Here we go. From Paul Green. Huzzah, hooray, yippee, and all the other fun words. Thank you so much, Canary Cry Artists Guild, for stepping up and creating some amazing artwork. Your talent is truly a gift from the Lord. After some deliberation, the winners have been chosen and go as follows.
Yeah, we need a drum roll. I don't have a drum roll, sorry.
Yeah, I know. We could have planned that, but we didn't. All right, Gonzo, are you prepared to show? Okay, yes. Here we go. In third place with the green logo, Producer Ciara. And we can take a look at this one here. This was a wonderful entry from Producer Ciara, and it is a green logo, a circular logo around the outside. Says Canary Cry Producers, and in the middle are 2 sort of symmetrical praying hands, of course, but between the hands it sort of forms an arrow pointing up, which is very good.
You know what I like about this logo is it kind of reminds me of like the green stuff that's out there all the time, you know, with the New World Order agenda. Kind of flips it on its head.
I thought you were talking about plants. You mean plants, Gons?
No.
You know, the green stuff that's out there?
Yeah, the green stuff. No, I mean green like all stuff. There's a lot
the
of like
stuff in the outside.
Okay. You know, like buildings, if they're like green compliant, they'll get like a little logo on, a little sticker on there. It's kind of like that, but you know, flips on its head. It's a Canary Cry Producer. So I like it.
Yes. Very good. And written in there, in the logo, I want to mention is 1 Thessalonians 5:17.
Yes.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Continuing on. In second place, Producer Debbie with a beautiful coat of arms and Canary flying free. And here you go. We've got Producer Debbie with her beautiful hand-drawn coat of arms type shield and sword with a cross in the middle of the shield. We got a canary in the top left corner, an open cage in the top right, and 2 hands in the bottom reaching up. Really well done, Producer Debbie. Loving it. Yes. And it says Canary Cry Producers in sort of a calligraphic font.
Is that a word? Probably.
I don't think so, but it sounded cool.
Sounded right.
And we've got our yellow canary flying through the font.
I was going to say that yellow,
excellently done.
That yellow canary is very throwback to the OG Canary Cry radios.
It looks like she pulled it right off of the old website.
Yeah,
that's
very cool.
I'm pretty sure that is it. So that is nice to see that returning. Yeah. Thank you very much, Producer Debbie. Okay, let me catch up here. Here we go. In first place, drum roll, please. Oh, there we go. There's a drum roll right in there.
I don't know that I like that drum roll. This is not a good drum roll.
Hey, you know what? I was trying something new. You know, we'll see. Okay. Here we go. We have Producer Dove. That's right. Producer Dove with an excellent coat of arms on a blue background. I felt that this piece of art kept with the theme of the show best. Canary Cry blue and yellow with 2 canaries holding a coat of arms. The coat of arms encompasses the producers well, with folded hands over a knocked-over cage, canaries flying free, and a cornerstone foundation of Christ. But what really made this piece stand out was the googly eyes. That's right. When in doubt, just add googly eyes. I hope to see this logo on some shirts in the near future. Again, thank you to all the artists and talented producers that make this show happen. This was a fun way to interact with the community, and who knows, there may be some other contests in the future. Ooh. Special thanks to all the producers. I am extremely grateful for everyone who took the time to pray for my mother, Dame Sissy Sue of Sassafras. She's back to her old sassy self. Thank you, monthly producer Paul Green.
Yeah,
there we go. That's very
awesome.
fun, very special. And yes, the Dove, I mean, everybody did a fantastic job, but as usual, Dove nailed it on this. And the googly eyes really sends it home on this canary. We'll make sure to put up, remember, you can see all the art, including the Canary Cry producers logos on the show notes by heading over to canarycrynewstalk.com, clicking into this episode.
You know what's cool about this little competition and talking about value for value? You know, this is pretty much orchestrated by producer Paul Green.
Yeah.
And, you know, he just did it. We were kind of like, cool. You know, we don't have to do much.
That's how we roll around here, man. Producers, look, here's the thing. If producers out there want to do something, you are a producer. You do it. We will support you. We will do what we need to do on our end to help make it happen. And Paul Green did an excellent job, not only of executing on what he wanted to do, but also on not relying on Consonai to do much extra work.
That is the key to get things done around here when it comes to, if you're a producer and you want to see something happen. Definitely the key is to
take initiative. Initiative is rewarded. It's a true meritocracy around here. Yes. And so I also want to make sure to to announce that the prizes that Paul Green made available so generously was the producerships in the name of these artists in the first, second, and third slot, which means we need to put it on the list, Gons. Producer Ciara is now credited with a $25 producership for this episode.
Very good.
Producer Debbie is credited with $50 producership for this episode. And last but not least, producer Dove, you are credited with a $100 producership for episode 346.
Right. That'll count towards each of their knighthoods and damehoods, correct?
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah, so let's make sure to make a note of that. And okay, there we go. Thank you very much again, producer Paul Green and all of the artists. Let's see here. Do you want to do art first, or do you want to do reviews?
Well, I have timestamps to thank. The timestampers. Rachel C., thank you very much for doing the timestamps for episode 345. And of course, you can contribute to the show as a producer with not just your financial treasure, but also with your time and talent. Timestamps is a time-consuming type of thing to listen to the show, and also to give us the timestamps to help other people out who may just want to skip around and find the stories that they want to check out. But also, you can send your jingles.
We have a new jingle.
That one was stuck in my head during sleep hours. I'd wake up and hear that. Over the Rainbow is ringing in my head. We have one from producer Jack V. And Jack did send a note. Let me see here. I think this was the second note. Hold on, let me find the first note. As I'm looking for it, I'll just play it. The jingle or ISO here is for Lit.
Where'd you find this?
Hey, you lit now.
Okay, here's the note. It says
some prime Gen Z content right there.
He says, hey, my Chads in Christ. I just attempted to make a lit jingle.
Christ.
I know Chads in Christ is so on point with this generation. I think that's got to be like a group. We gotta just, go
look,
under
millennials, all millennials out there. Look, I get it. We have a complicated relationship with Gen Z. We're at a time of life where we're just now realizing how ridiculous the generation behind us can seem. But you have got to give these Gen Zs some credit. They have got some crazy stuff going on, and I appreciate it very much.
Hey, Chads in Christ, I just attempted to make a lit jingle. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and after getting my new desk in my new house, I figured now was the time. I hope you guys use it for a streak whenever somebody is lit or just whenever it's lit. Ha ha ha, big love. Also, I love the quality is good. If not, I hope you can fix it, or maybe I can. No periods or commas in that note.
Them?
Jack V.
Punctuation.
We don't need no punctuation. We just need to be lit. Jack V, the crypto Chad. Thank you, Jack V.
Thank you very much for keeping us connected to the Gen Z culture.
I feel like I am more in touch with that generation with Jack V's presence here. So we
truly, it is funny, but also very true. It's given me sort of an umbilical cord like lifeline to Gen Z. Because before Jack V came along, our crypto Chad, Gen Z culture was more of a theoretical concept.
It was starting to slip.
It was more of like an area of study than of experience.
Yeah.
And yes, thank you. You've made us feel very connected to your generation.
Keeping us young.
All right.
And we also have to thank some artists here.
One art, please.
And the first one is by producer Ali.
One art, please. One art, please. Another one from Ali now. Here it is.
And the note here to describe the artwork here, it says, today's drawing was inspired by your conversation about how Dr. Do As You're Told and Governor Cuomo had somehow become sex symbols, but poor Billy Gates of hell had not. As you can see, he is very sad about this. Perhaps he should use some of his vast, seemingly endless resources to buy a gym and a trainer and someone to work out for him. Or, if he really wanted to, he can just plastic surgery his way into Chad status.
No way, man. You can't. There's no way to fake the Chadness.
I don't know. There's some really weird plastic surgery stuff happening now with like muscle reconfiguration and stuff. Not just calf, but like ab stuff. I don't know. There's some weird stuff out there now.
I haven't seen that. I've seen the calf implants. It weirds me out. But yes, for those who are just listening, we've got Ali has really sort of perfected her depiction of the human form, because we've got Fauci and Cuomo flexing at each other in their gym tank tops and their masks, and
Cuomo has like a bird mask on or something.
Yeah, some googly eyes on the masks. It's a very good touch. But behind them is Bill Gates, just looking so sad and so wimpy and so not a sex symbol. Sorry, Bill Gates.
I had to take a closer look here. I'm trying to see if Fauci's mask has anything. I can't tell if there was.
No, but Fauci's biceps are out of control.
Oh, that is some crazy biceps from Fauci.
I want to tweet this image at all three of them and just see what happens.
Oh yeah, Ali missed the nipple rings on Cuomo. Maybe it's there. We just can't see it.
Yeah, he's wearing a dark shirt. He had to wear a dark shirt for
that. And the
other
thing, I couldn't tell. I guess it's not. I thought Gates had earrings or an earring, but I guess that's just his hair.
Yeah, it's just his hair, man. He's just doing his
sad.
Thing.
Okay.
It is weird that Bill Gates, especially recent pictures referenced, is really not doing great. Billionaires. One thing about billionaires, man, is they're always pretty ripped or pretty slender, at least.
Yeah, you got time to work out.
You got time, you got money. I mean, any possible resource, any possible excuse that you would have.
Yeah, you don't anymore.
Out the window. I mean, I guess he's old, but he's not older than Fauci. Fauci and Cuomo and Gates, they're all the same age. So, yeah, Gates, what are you doing, buddy? Come on, man. You can't let these other guys take all the attention.
Yeah, Bill Gates, 65 years
now
old.
That he's single, who knows?
Oh, yeah, he might come back and
he might
just comes back ripped.
More ripped than anyone.
All right.
Oh, boy. All right. Thank you very much, Allie. That's Gazel and Bonds in the chat, everybody. Thank you very much, Producer Allie.
Next up, we have Producer Dove coming in with
Dove. How does he nail it every single time? It is crazy. This is a masterpiece from Producer Dove here. And let's see. Do we have a note to go along with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
It says
read
here,
the note first.
Got the idea for this one last week after hearing about Bibi calling Biden multiple times during the day and blowing up the FISA CEO's phone like 33 times.
Yeah.
I was picturing Bibi as a jealous high school girlfriend ringing her crush's phone off the hook and thought I'd bring that weird vision to life. Hope you enjoy it. Keep doing what you do, and I'll keep praying for yins. And that's exactly what it is. It's
exactly
Bibi.
what it is. For a little bit of context, if you are sort of new to the show or following along, Bibi Netanyahu, of course, is the leader of Israel and is notorious for calling way too much. He called the CEO of Pfizer 33 times in a row one day to try to get vaccines, his vaccine order placed. He called Biden like a dozen times one day trying to get the Israel-Gaza conflict settled. So he's famous for really just being an obsessive sort of ex-girlfriend type. And this photo does it perfectly. We got Bibi Netanyahu laying on his belly on his pink bed comforter there with his pink corded telephone, which is a nice touch. Sometimes iPhones can be hard for guys like him. And he's wearing his pink heart pajama bottoms. In the background, he's got his pink fuzzy lampshade in his bedroom, and a photo, just a beautiful photo of Joe Biden in his ultra patriotic sort of form in front of a waving American flag. And on the picture, that is framed, by the way, are two lipstick prints from Bibi. And of course, no Dove piece would be complete without the Easter egg referencing back to something else. And he's got the tardigrade movie poster in the back, the First Blood Rambo
poster,
tardigrade. Yeah, movie poster.
You missed the detail on Bibi, which is a pink yarmulke on his head.
Oh, yes.
And
his and his bubble, his speech bubble is he's saying, pick up the phone, Joe. That's what he sounds like, right? He's something like that.
Sure.
He's got kind of that low, raspy Kissinger.
He's got a really low voice. He's got a low kind of rumbly.
Pick up the phone, Joe.
Yeah.
I've called you 33 times today.
There you go.
Thanks.
All right.
Masterpiece. Thank you very much, Producer Dove.
Thank you, Producer Dove. And lastly, we have Producer Jay Vela coming in with a Dark Winter. He's our Denver Airport muralist. And it's always better when you try to describe what's happening here.
Okay, we've got thank you very much, Jay Vela, with our for today's Denver Airport mural. It's the Dark Winter, baby. Up in the top left, it says "Ice, Ice, Baby," and we've got the country of Texas, the state of Texas, outlined with some planes flying either up and out of it or over it, leaving some just splendid chemtrails. Down below that, we've got what is it? Let me zoom in here. Worth more than weight in gold. Invest, and it's a furnace, like a fireplace. What is that? Is that wood in there?
I think it's wood.
Yeah, of course. Oh, it's Texas, of course. It's the dark winter.
Yeah.
There's no electricity during the dark winter in Texas. We've got a building that is on fire, but we've got some people huddling up next to it to stay warm. That's nice. Down at the bottom, we've got a man peeing off of a cliff onto some blue boxes. What are those? Is that some sort of...
I think that's the blockchain. That's my guess. 3 boxes, blocks.
That is kind of the symbol for blockchain. Yeah, that could be it. And to the right of him, we've got some wind turbines there. Famous. They love wind turbines in Texas. But, of course, it would not be complete without, in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got the hooded gas mask figures ushering a poor young man into a barred cell. Says free shelter, free food, free Wi-Fi, free vax. Ooh, they're going to fall for it, I think. Up above that, again, we've got a little bonfire here. Some Texans huddled around trying to stay warm. Somebody is in their bed sleeping there, again, next to the fire. And it says blackouts. And there you go. That is the dark winter. First annual. That's okay. There's a little touch I forgot. It's the first annual dark winter, suggesting that Texas needs to prepare themselves because this is not a one-time event. Not until you federalize that energy grid, Texas.
Yep. There you go. Appreciate that, Jay Vela, and appreciate all the producers out there with your various talents, your time, your treasure. And there you go. We have a review to go over, or a couple of reviews, correct?
Yep. We've got a couple of reviews and then just some fun charts as well. We'll check in with the charts. Let me just reload this page just in case anything else comes in. So thank you to everybody who left ratings and reviews. We got a couple this week. And just a reminder, if you're out there and you have never left a rating and a review, now is your time. This is your sign. It is the time to go leave a rating and a review. On Apple Podcasts, it only takes a couple minutes, but it is very important for us to have a kind of a steady stream of ratings and reviews, because that tells the iTunes algorithms, the robots who are charged with sharing the podcast out with people who have never heard it before, ratings and reviews coming in, make sure that the show gets put in front of people who have never seen it before. So let's see here. Let me just check the
or
date
heard
of
it.
our. Yes.
We are technically an audio program first.
Yes.
But also visually.
Thank you very much for that reminder. Some people need to hear that. Okay, here we go. Ratings and reviews coming in on Apple Podcasts. This first one is from Joby G. Now, we've heard from Joby G before, but Joby G has revised the review, and it goes like this. 5 stars, a great bunch of guys. This is the best news talk, biblical analysis, and apocalyptic Watchmen show, period.
Whoa.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you very much, Joby G.
Appreciate that, Joby G.
Next up, we have KDJJDIJ. Thank you very much. Coming in on Apple Podcasts. 5 stars. Thank you. As I travel through this oh, hold on. Okay, I can already tell I need to. As I travel through this purgatory of darkness, you are by my side. You are a comforting voice that for a short period of time drowns out the overwhelming silence that haunts me like the ghosts of my future regrets. When the world hangs like the slumber of the plague bringers, it is comforting to find others who go against the grain like a razor and a close shave. The content you create is of infinite value that can only be numbered as the children of Abraham or the stars of heaven. So may Babylon fall and the kingdom rise. James Green. Thank you very much, James Green.
Thank you.
review.
Yeah.
And
were you instructed to read in the?
No.
Okay,
no, I could just
personal...
tell from the first 6 words that it needed a little bit of flourish.
Okay.
I got to, as I travel through this purgatory of darkness, it just felt like it was asking to get a little flair on it.
Sure. Yeah, that's great.
Let's see here. One more review. Thank you very much from I See the Lies 69. Subject line says, good. Thank you.
Good. All right. Good.
Good. It's a 5-star review, and it goes like this. Pretty good. Help me find Jesus. So thanks.
All right.
That was beautiful.
I like it.
Pretty good. Help me find Jesus. So thanks. That's great. Thank you very much. I see the lies 69.
Very good.
And I think that is it. I read the one from Scott and Sarah Kober, right?
I don't remember.
It came in on the 27th, and the next Friday was the 28th. I don't really remember. I'm going to just read it again, just because I couldn't remember if I read it. This is 5 stars from Scott and Sarah K. Best podcast on the internet.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah. Why would I not read this again? Best podcast on the internet. My wife and I love this podcast. Great information that keeps us up to date on Flippy, politics, and all information about the jab. We recently have become producers of the show. Thanks so much, Gons and Basil, for all you do. Keep up the great work as we keep thinking outside the cage. Scott and Sarah Kober. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank
you very
much.
There you go. So thank you for all those ratings and reviews, folks, and I hope we get some more for next week. You guys have been doing a great job keeping that nice steady stream going. And please, if you have not done it yet, please go leave a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. I know people hate being asked to leave ratings and reviews, and I know every podcast asks for it, but just do it for us. Like, if you don't do it for anybody else, just do it for us. It really does help out. I know it seems trivial, but it's really not. So, and I will be reading them all on the show next Friday, and so there you go. And who knows, if you make it fancy enough, like the purgatory one, maybe I'll even throw a little spice on it. So there you go. All right, Gons, just a couple of little updates on the charts.
Okay.
You know, our producers are responsible for pretty much all of this show, and so it's only right that we keep the producers updated on where we sit on the global charts of all podcasts. And we got a couple good spots here. In the United States of America, which is the most competitive and hardest chart to get on, we are top 100, baby, in news commentary. That's right. We're ranked at 80. On Apple Podcasts in the United States is good. You know, just getting in the top 100 of the U.S. is very difficult. So we're just happy to be there. Thank you very much. Next, I'll just run down the list here. Number 75 in Canada, news commentary. That's good. Number 60 in Australia, news commentary. Even better. That's right. Down under. Thank you, Daniel. Netherlands, 89, news commentary. That's good. Cool. Let's see, South Africa, 78. Thank you very much. Now, Finland, we rose one spot since our last episode in Finland, which put us at number 99.
All right.
Just made it. Just got there. Under 100. Thank you very much, Finland, for listening. Next up, we have Romania. Thank you, Romania. Number 80 in Romania.
Cool.
Yep. And then... again, always surprising, but very happy about it. Nigeria, number 67 in Nigeria. Thank you very much, Nigeria, for listening. Next up is Jamaica. We're sitting at 50, dead middle of top 100. Thank you very much, Jamaica. Okay. Uganda coming in, not to be forgotten. Uganda, be kidding me, number 34.
Ooh, that's pretty good. Oh, almost 33.
So close.
Yeah.
And then our favorite Caribbean island, Anguilla, coming in at number 18.
Oh, we dropped like a bunch.
We did drop, but I mean, it was ridiculous that we were at one time number 1 in Anguilla. So
I have, you know, once you taste a little victory.
I know. Well, once you hit the top, there's nowhere to go but down, Gons. So
yeah. It's all about staying on top.
Everybody wants the crown. Okay, that's it for reviews and charts.
Okay.
Yeah, also leaving ratings and reviews also does help us climb the charts as well. It's they're complicated algorithms that take in a lot of information, but ratings and reviews help. So thank you to our ratings and reviewers for helping climb those charts. All right, we should probably get back to the show unless we have anything else.
We're running short on time here.
It's a late show. We need to keep going.
Yes, it's wake up time.
Hey, yo, wake up.
Okay, time to wake up, folks. And Gons, you want to take this first one?
Poly. It's Latin for many.
Tick.
Now suck your blood.
Politics.
Got hairy legs. Got hairy legs.
New York Times. Biden expands Trump-era ban on investment in Chinese firms linked to military.
Hey, wait, that's racist.
What's going on?
What's going on?
Why is
Biden racist?
Yeah.
Come on, man. Who would have guessed?
The new order includes firms engaged in making and deploying the surveillance technology used against Muslim minorities and dissidents around the globe. George P. Bush, son of Jeb, is running for Texas Attorney General. I don't know why that's in there. President Biden, is that like a subheading? Anyway. President Biden.
They just had to get Jeb in there. This is just a little mention.
I know. New York Times just they didn't know where to fit him, so they're like, here. President
Biden. Is
Biden.
Weird. It's connected to nothing.
Yeah, maybe it is connected to something. I don't know. We'll see. President Biden issued a new executive order on Thursday barring Americans from investing in Chinese firms linked to the country's military or engaged in selling surveillance technology, both inside and outside of China, used to repress dissent or religious minorities. The new order, which initially lists 59 Chinese firms, substantially expands an order issued in November by President Donald J. Trump. By rewriting that earlier order to include firms engaged in making and deploying the surveillance technology used against Muslim minorities like the Uyghurs and dissidents in Hong Kong and in the Chinese diaspora around the globe, it intensifies a commercial and ideological battle between Beijing and Washington, one that Mr. Biden has termed the struggle between, quote, autocracy and democracy. The move comes at a moment when China is both ramping up its ability to spy on its nearly 1.4 billion people using a mix of facial recognition cameras and software, phone scanners, and a range of other tools, and exporting that technology to nations around the world. It is often sold abroad as part of a package of communications equipment provided by companies like Huawei or as part of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to expand the country's trade ties. Mr. Biden's aides said the move was justified by a new American commitment not to facilitate Chinese repression and human rights abuses.
Yeah, which apparently is racist when Trump tries to go against Chinese repression, but when Biden does it, it's okay.
And it's just par of the course. Yeah. But China regularly decries such moves as interference in its domestic affairs, and in the past has sought to retaliate with bans on American companies, leading to fears of broad economic decoupling between the world's two largest economies. And the Chinese will likely argue that the U.S. and other countries use some of these same technologies and techniques to track terrorists and drug lords, or their own citizens.
Yeah, seriously.
It is unclear how effective Mr. Biden's order will be at stopping the spread of Chinese espionage technology. To make the investment ban truly effective, he would have to convince the European allies, Japan and South Korea, among others, to join the effort. The effort may begin next week. How to handle China is expected to be a major subject when Mr. Biden, not even President Biden.
You know, the last is this the Wall Street Journal? No,
New
York Times. So the Wall Street Journal has been calling him Mr. Biden and not President Biden.
Yeah.
And now the New York Times calling him Mr. Biden and not President Biden.
But it's one of two things. Either Kamala is ready to go, or Trump is coming back, baby.
It's one of those two. It's the only two options.
Either way, Hairy Legs is out of here.
Yeah. So, I mean, just for a little bit of context, and don't want to belabor this, but it was seen as a protest against Trump, and very specifically, I would say explicitly, they said that we call him Mr. Trump because we don't want to call him President Trump. And that seems to have bled over into Mr. Biden. I wonder if they're just starting to catch on to all his shenanigans and the fact that he's not pulling the, far left party line, that they're starting to realize, oh, well, we need to get back at him now too.
Yeah, the progressives are getting mad.
Yeah.
The only way they know how to lash out is to do what they did to Trump. They're well exercised in that, so they're just applying it to Biden here.
Yeah.
Okay. How to handle China is expected to be a major subject when Mr. Biden goes to the Group of Seven summit in Britain next week, followed by a meeting of NATO allies. It will be his first foreign trip as president, but in the preparations for the meeting, he is already running into resistance from nations that, like Germany and South Korea, rely on China as one of their biggest export markets for luxury cars, software, and electronics. As described by senior administration officials on Thursday, the new order will prohibit American companies and companies based in the U.S. from investing in the stock of publicly listed Chinese companies on the list or in debt issued by those firms. Ban will extend.
That's the expansion right there, in debt issued by those firms.
Yeah.
So you can't even invest in a company who got a loan from China.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting.
Notoriously, because the CCP holds control over companies that get loans from China.
Yeah. The ban will extend to investing in funds that, in turn, invest in those companies. Those funds will have a year to unwind their investments. And they're really decoupling here from China. This is really interesting.
Yeah.
The new executive order is another example of a case in which the Biden administration is building on a Trump-era Chinese initiative. Mr. Biden has also kept tariffs on Chinese goods in place as leverage in negotiations. In this case, Biden administration officials say they were acting in part to fix the executive order issued last November, which they say was badly written and has been challenged successfully in American courts because it did not clearly lay out the factual basis for banning investments in Chinese firms linked to the defense industry. Under the new executive order, the list of Chinese firms affected by the ban will be put together by the Treasury Department, which has long experience in issuing sanctions rather than by the Pentagon. I think that's it.
Yeah, I'm trying to do some digging on the fly here, but it occurred to me that we have heard he's been called Mr. Biden in articles that are specifically talking about China and his issues with China. And so I'm trying to look and see if there's any connection to, New York Times to China or Chinese, some sort of Chinese ownership or provenance of ownership there. Because it would make sense that in every article with Biden dealing with China, that they would want to undermine the office by calling him Mr. Biden, not President Biden.
Right.
I'm sort of just playing around with the theory right now. I'm kind of trying to dig in on ownership, but that would make sense. I guess one other way to test that would be to look for other articles by the New York Times about Biden and see if they call him President Biden there. But I don't know. There we go.
Probably depends on the writer too. Like this one was written by who is it? Doesn't even say here. I don't know. Oliver Contreras. Oh no, is that a photo? Maybe that's the photo. So what is it with George P. Bush, son of Jeb, running for
Why
Texas
did they
Attorney
throw that in there? That is so weird. He just got a little mention out of nowhere
in this
like New York Times article.
Super is he going to get involved in some kind of role in the Chinese situation here, maybe later on? This is like his introduction, a subtle introduction.
Well, that makes it suspect. Okay, so you have a couple things about this. You have an article about Biden and China with George P. Bush, son of Jeb, being just inserted in there out of nowhere. So I don't know. Let's say if this is some sort of pro-China slant, would the Chinese want George Bush as the Texas Attorney General? I don't know. It's really strange. Also pretty weird that Jeb named his son after his brother.
Well, them.
Oh, his dad, of course. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, his
Stupid.
dad.
His dad, not his brother. Okay. All right. Well, I don't know. Anything else on that?
Not really. I just
I'm
think
not able to actually make any firm connections live here on the air,
well,
but some questions for sure.
I think the takeaway here that's interesting is that he is sort of building on what Trump built with the whole China thing, and it goes against what Biden verbally said, I think in February, where he's like, well, China's, they're just doing what they do there, and it's different culturally or whatever. I remember it was like a whole 180. Like the month before he said he's going to lock down on China and blah, blah, blah. It's a human rights violation. And then like 3 weeks later, he was like, no, it's just cultural differences that, well, who am I to say, taking control of the Uyghurs.
Yeah, that is weird, isn't it?
Maybe
that's why they're turning against him.
Maybe it's just to do watch what I do, not as I say kind of thing with all, politicians is a thing. But yeah, it's just fascinating to watch. And it's not going to be talked about too much in the mainstream. That's another part of it. It's almost like they're protecting the the normies out there who are, supporters of Biden from any kind of brain explosion when they find out that Biden is building on Trump's policies about China. Because otherwise, it would seem like, I don't know, even Republicans should be jumping all over this kind of story. But I don't know. We'll see.
This is weird. Look at the board of directors of the New York Times.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hear them?
Isn't it some Chinese people?
No, that's what I was kind of shooting for. But again, just more rabbit holes to go down that I'm not going to do live. But we have the board of directors. We've got the chairman of the New York Times company. We've got the CEO of GoDaddy.
Ooh.
The CEO of Solomon Brothers. The CFO of Etsy, former AIG executive, CEO of New York Times Company, chairman and CEO of Pandora Media, president of Wirecutter, founder of Ariel Investments, an investment company located in Chicago, former CFO of Verizon, and CMO of Oculus.
Ah, Facebook, right?
Yeah. CFO of Oculus. Oculus is a Facebook Technologies LLC, a subsidiary of Facebook.
I think
so Facebook has a man on the board of directors of the New York Times, which I guess, I'm sorry, let me retract that. It is a woman, Rebecca.
Okay.
Yeah, that's very suspicious.
I really think the technocratic elite are starting to place people in for some kind of crazy, not just musical chairs, but like like Biden's working on the infrastructure overhaul here.
Oh yeah, that's how it works.
I think with like news media and a lot of that stuff, they're getting ready to kind of just revamp the whole thing as part of the Great Reset. And they're just getting some of their players in the positions they want them to be in when things start to move around.
Some of these people are active in their CEO seats. Like you have an active CEO of GoDaddy, an active CMO of Oculus, an active, let's see here, CFO of Etsy.
No conflict of interest in any of this?
I don't know, but that does seem weird that you could be the CEO of a humongous corporation and also sit on the board of directors of a news organization. That just seems wrong. It doesn't seem like you should be able to do that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's no surprise. We know that that's how the media works in the United States. Yeah. So speaking of Facebook.
Yes.
Let's jump into this. This is coming directly from about.fb.com. This is Facebook put out this little press release. In response to Oversight Board, Trump suspended for 2 years will only be reinstated if conditions permit. Last month, the Oversight Board upheld Facebook's suspension of former U.S. President Donald Trump's Facebook and Instagram accounts following his praise for people engaged in violence at the Capitol on January 6th. But in doing so, the board criticized the open-ended nature of the suspension, stating that, quote, it was not appropriate for Facebook to impose the indeterminate and standardless penalty of indefinite suspension. The board instructed us to review the decision and respond in a way that is clear and proportionate, and made a number of recommendations on how to improve our policies and processes. We are today announcing new enforcement protocols to be applied in exceptional cases such as this, and we are confirming the time-bound penalty consistent with those protocols which we are applying to Mr. Trump's accounts. Given the gravity of the circumstances that led to Mr. Trump's suspension, we believe his actions constituted a severe violation of our rules, which merit the highest penalty available under the new enforcement protocols. We are suspending his accounts for 2 years, effective from the date of the initial suspension of January 7th this year. At the end of this period, we will look to experts to assess whether the risk to public safety has receded. We will evaluate external factors, including instances of violence, restrictions on peaceful assembly, and other markers of civil unrest.
If they did that with like half the politicians, over half the politicians would be banned. But
it's crazy. Yeah. If we determine that there is still a serious risk to public safety, we will extend the restriction for a set period of time and continue to reevaluate until the risk is receded. When the suspension is eventually lifted, there will be a strict set of rapidly escalating sanctions that will be triggered if Mr. Trump commits further violations in future, up to and including permanent removal of his pages and accounts. In establishing the 2-year sanction for severe violation, we considered the need for it to be long enough to allow a safe period of time after the acts of incitement to be significant enough to be a deterrent to Mr. Trump and others from committing such severe violations in the future, and to be proportionate to the gravity of the violation itself. We are grateful that the Oversight Board acknowledged that our original decision to suspend Trump, blah, 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 blah. And it kind of goes on and on. It's not that important. To the focus of this conversation we're going to have, which is they are suspending him for 2 years from January 7th. When does that put the lift of his suspension?
2023.
January 7th of 2023, the opening pitch of election season for 2024. This is just really weird timing, man. And especially because they chose the 2 years. Nothing said that it had to be 2 years. They could have picked 3 years if they really wanted to sort of sabotage any chance for him in 2024. But to let him, or maybe that's what they're holding over his head, say, okay, we'll let you back on at the beginning of election season if you don't run. If you do run, then we're going to ban you.
Right. They'll have him on like a really short leash. Yeah. He'll tweet out like, I'm back. And they're like, that's racist. Shut it down.
Totally.
He said back. Back of what? Chinese people? Racist?
This is a very obviously, I think that's a great way to put it, an attempt by Facebook to put Trump on a really short leash. If they don't want him to run and he runs, then they just ban him again for whatever they want to. I mean, that's what they've been doing for years. Or maybe they kind of let him run, but if he doesn't play ball the way they want him to play, then boom, they ban him again. And the funny part is, as if he cares about Facebook.
I know.
Like, as if being kicked off of Facebook was some sort of actual punishment for Donald Trump.
He's going to have, I thought by then he'll probably have his own social media platform and all that anyway. So, but the other part that's bad about that is, well, what measures are going to go, are going to be thrown out there to try to reel that in, like, hey, internet service companies, you can't allow these people to visit this website, this domain.
Sure.
That's when we start getting really serious in terms of censorship. It's super China.
I think it's hilarious, though, that Facebook, it just shows sort of how they see themselves, which they really do see themselves as the technocrats that they sort of want to be, which is, everybody wants to be on Facebook. We are the bringers of truth and the the creators of connection across the borders. We are the Skynet of human consciousness. So if you want to play in our playground, we'll let you do it, but don't mess with us.
You know, there was some people on Twitter, and this goes to show how badly, like, the mental derangement of this is quite sad. So there's a guy named Andy Stone. He tweeted out, nothing about the status of President Trump's presence on our platform has changed. He remains indefinitely suspended. I think Andy Stone is like a Facebook alum, communications from Facebook. And then there's this Rabbi Jill Zimmerman responded, Andy, his verified account is still there with the link to his website, etc. I can hardly call that suspended. Please take him off the platform fully. It's like, come, okay, people.
It's just children.
Just
it's
don't
like weird
go to his
tattletale
site
children.
or something. Like, what? I don't know. It's just.
It's very sad.
It's sad. It's sad. It's like the mental.
Sad.
The mental derangement is very sad.
Teacher.
Yeah.
Trump's being mean.
But he was banned. But his page is still there. I could still see it. Well, then don't go there. But I type in Trump. Well, then don't type in Trump. But
I can't stop. I can't help myself.
But yeah, so
I'm
what
obsessed,
if they take? Yeah, but if they take the thing down, what are they going to do? Type in Trump. Oh, it's not there.
Now all is well.
All is
the
well.
World is better.
So weird.
Yeah. So, anyways, there you go. I just think that's hilarious, and it's just again just ridiculous. But hey, they're a private company. They're allowed to do whatever they want to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me bring up one last thing, and then I'll let you go out with your Nephilim updates. There. What do you think?
There is no other like mother. So treat her right.
Come on. There we go. Okay. Gonna talk about some mothers, but I will include fathers in this, and you'll see why in a second. It's coming from Wired.com. The headline is, "They rage quit the school system, and they're not going back." Dun, dun, dun. A little bit of context here for you. For those who are not gamers, rage quit is the act of being enraged by losing a video game and then quitting out of rage and hoping that will somehow punish other people.
I experienced that way too much, or I had experienced that a lot when I was I used to be an NBA 2K player. I'd jump into the live 5-on-5 and then people just quit. It's annoying.
Mm-hmm.
It's very annoying.
Yeah, if you're on a team and somebody doesn't pass you the ball, in the case of NBA or whatever, then you just get mad and you leave. And it sabotages your team somehow. But let's see what they're talking about. It's easy to homeschool in Texas. Yeehaw, baby. A cursory search leads to a step-by-step guide for withdrawing your kid from the school system. Plug a few bits of information into a templated letter, send to a district administrator, and voila, you're running a school. And everything your kid learns is entirely up to you. Which sounds like a utopian idea, in my opinion. And yet, when I'm reading it on Wired, seems there's some tinge of disgust in there, isn't there? Quote, "It was so nerve-wracking," says Sarahi Espatia, a mom of 4 in McKinney, Texas, a suburb north of Dallas. After a grueling spring of remote learning, Espatia began homeschooling her kids at the start of the 2020 school year. As a graduate of the public schools, she felt like she had just plunged her family into the unknown. Quote, "We're so used to going to school," except that the definition of, quote, "going to school" had been radically upended by the COVID-19 pandemic. Campuses closed abruptly while children and teachers struggled mightily with online learning. Espatia, who also helps run the family restaurant, was left to navigate confusing new platforms, screen time fatigue, and endless technical malfunctions for 4 children. Her kids were 10, 8, 6, and 3. Her youngest, a preschooler, didn't even know how to use a mouse yet. By the end of the year, Espatia said her kids were crying, worried by online learning. Yet, wary of letting her children return to in-person learning, she she turned to homeschooling just for the year, just until things got back to normal. The country appears to be on the verge of going back to normal. Her district's schools have been open for months, but Espatia's kids won't be going back to traditional school. Over the past year, she was able to shift her kids' learning schedule outside of the weekday lockstep because her husband works on weekends. She treats Mondays like a weekend. Her kids have less school, and everyone can spend more time together as a family. She liked that. She could teach her kids more Mexican history, and they learned than they learned in schools. Last year, she joined a Latinos homeschooling Facebook group where families share resources such as Spanish children's books and curriculum ideas. Next school year, she plans to keep teaching her kids herself. Espatia is a part of a wave of parents and caregivers who withdrew their children from U.S. public schools and elected to homeschool because of the pandemic. And she's part of a group that isn't going back. The crisis gave rise to a diverse swath of families that are using tech to totally customize their kids' learning, and they might even change what, quote, going to school means in the post-pandemic world. While homeschooling is legal in all 50 states, it has never been considered the American norm. In 2019, homeschooled students represented just 3.2% of the U.S. students in grades K through 12. Or around 1.7 million students. By comparison, 90% of U.S. students attend public school. But a March 2021 report from the U.S. Census Bureau indicates an uptick in homeschooling during the pandemic. In spring 2020, 5.4% of surveyed households reported homeschooling their children, homeschooling being distinct from remote learning at home through a public or private school. By fall 2020, the figure had doubled to 11.1%. 111 there. The pandemic may also have given rise to a more diverse group of homeschoolers. In 2012, 84% of homeschool families were white. The U.S. Census Bureau surveys indicate that homeschooling rates increased across all ethnic groups in the past year, and the greatest shift was among Black families who reported a 3.3% rate of homeschooling in spring 2020. A little interesting 33 update there, a little signaling to the Black families moving over to homeschooling, and 16.1% later in the fall. Quote, COVID-19 was the publicist for homeschooling, says Khadija Ali Coleman, a longtime homeschooling parent and researcher who studies African-American homeschool students. In April 2020, Ali Coleman and researcher Cheryl Field Smith co-founded the Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars Network to connect researchers and the handful of Black homeschooled families they had met through their research. But what began as a small Facebook group climbed to over 1,000 members, including many families new to homeschooling. Families shared a number of forces that drove them away from public and private schools. Some were exhausted by the glitchy mayhem of remote learning. Other BFHES families, Black Families what is BFHES? I think that's, I see. Black Family Homeschool Educators and Scholars Network. Wow. Usually in these articles, if they're trying to acronym something, they'll tell you what the acronym is. Not in this case.
Figure it out.
Yeah, figure it out yourself, public schooler. Other BFHES families pulled their children from schools after they overheard how teachers spoke to their children, admonishing students who didn't maintain eye contact or keep cameras on. For parents unhappy with COVID-era education, homeschooling could seem like a respite from struggling public and private schools and an opportunity to reclaim a part in their kids' learning. Ali Coleman points out that the pandemic was the catalyst that pushed parents seriously consider what they really wanted for their kids' education, what to look like, the roles they wanted to play as parents, and the options they had outside the default educational institution. This is where online homeschool communities like BFHES comes in. Virtual communities make alternative forms of schooling, like homeschooling and pandemic pods, more accessible for more parents looking outside the neighborhood school. If researching how to start a homeschool is as easy as a Google search, then finding a group of similar-minded families for support and advice is just a few more clicks away. And I'm going to stop there. Again, this article goes on for about 100 more paragraphs of very interesting information about homeschooling and some ideas about it. Now, of course, we have a lot of homeschool people who listen to this show. I don't know why I said of course, but just for your information. And for a lot of different reasons, and not just new homeschoolers, but homeschool veterans that have been doing it forever. And I find it really interesting, Gons, and I want to know what you think, that in the past, homeschool has, it's had sort of a stigma in the secular world. Not saying that we think this or anybody here thinks this, but in the secular world, the homeschoolers don't necessarily have the greatest reputation. Am I wrong?
No, they don't.
No, they don't. Now, a lot of this is for religious reasons. Maybe sometimes it's for religious reasons. You don't want your kid going to a secular educational program, which kind of gets a bad rap for a couple of reasons. But I saw a great meme the other day. Let me tell you about memes, folks. I saw a great meme the other day that basically said, you don't see atheists sending their children to Christian schools because they don't agree with it and they don't want their children brainwashed into Christianity. Why would Christians send their kids to be brainwashed by secular schools? Which makes sense. Look, I was homeschooled. I've been a Christian for my entire life. I was not homeschooled. I went to public school my whole life, and I turned out okay. Not to say that, public school is a complete poisonous atmosphere. But yeah, I fully support the homeschool idea. I had lots of homeschool friends, but, they were a unique brood for sure. But I find it really interesting that Wired, of all places, there's this sort of shift in the idea of homeschooling that it's now sort of a social justice issue. They make a big deal about how diverse these homeschooling kids are, which I think is kind of funny because it's like the diversity of people who are not mixing in with people who are different from them. It's incredible. The diversity is great. Coexist, which is sort of I don't know, again, kind of this backward speak type of thing. But it's giving parents are realizing that the public school system is poisonous for a lot of reasons. If not simply for the fact that other adults are sort of put in charge of molding the mind of your child, which can be concerning. And, there's very special reasons why, minorities would want a specific say in what their children are learning, especially with all the attention on colonial mindsets and racism, inherent racism and identity politics and things like that. So there's this interesting shift going on that is favoring homeschool pretty much across the board. I know I just rambled for a while there, Gons, but what are your thoughts?
A couple things come to mind. First off, I think at a certain point, the elite controllers must know that there will be a backlash, correct? So, at a certain point, they know that, a certain segment of the population will be onto them and they're going to break off and do kind of their own thing, or they'll rebel in certain ways. So I'm not surprised there. I'm wondering, though, when it comes to homeschooling, aren't there still standardizations and curriculum that get distributed or sort of managed by a homeschooling organization? If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not a pro, but I do believe you're right. There's like an organization that you join, like you're still sort of you get your curriculums from a company, or there's many companies that provide homeschooling curriculums. I think there's a little bit of wiggle room for parents in that case, but there are support organizations. Whether that's required to join one of those, I'm not sure if it's required or not.
I was going to say, so what? Because if you're homeschooled, do you still meet certain local or state or even federal standards for children? Are there I mean, I don't know. I haven't looked into it enough to know.
Yeah, so I remember with my homeschool friends, I don't know if it was required or not, but they still took the standardized tests that I took. Remember, you took all those standardized tests, and those are very problematic and useless and dumb anyways, and everybody knows it. But I do know that my public school friends were still taking those same tests. And I think that's kind of what I think there is a small amount. I don't know if I would characterize it as small, but there is an amount of oversight just to make sure that your kids are actually making progress in one way or another.
Sure. So there's like a standardized testing, or at least a benchmarker to find out if the kids are learning the right math, or at least a level of math or whatever. So, but
whether that's managed by one of those companies or the state itself, I'm not sure. I imagine that those companies sort of do a lot of that for you, or provide the resources.
Because when I was growing up, when I heard homeschool, I didn't realize that there was any kind of organization attached. I thought it was just parents got to figure out what they taught their kids. And my thought was always like, wow, they must be rich or something to stay home and teach their,
rich or brilliant or geniuses. Or brilliant. Yeah.
So when it comes to that, in terms of breaking off the public school system is one thing. The ideologies and worldviews that can be placed in some kind of homeschool system moving forward, maybe not immediately, but kind of creeping in over time.
You mean
that would be interesting?
You mean like a homogenized, making it through provided curriculums or something?
Yeah, because like even for me, when my oldest daughter, she went to like a private Christian school, but over time I noticed, and I wasn't like super involved with all the educational side of things with her. I was, I'm the stepdad, so I was kind of oblivious to a lot of what was going on there. But I do recall over time, and this is California, so it's probably different in other states and other places, but over time, even the Christian private school, the curriculum, the standardized testing, everything became the same as public school. I mean, it was literally like, oh, wow, why are we even going to a private Christian school? The only difference is they get a sermon during the middle of the week or something. Otherwise, it's kind of the same thing. Right. Socially, it's the same or similar. In terms of curriculum, it's not that much different. I mean, I guess you can say that the teachers are Christians or whatever, but that's not always it's a peace of mind. It's supposed to be a peace of mind, but it doesn't always work out that way. People just have problems. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean you're like a great teacher or a great person or anything like that. So
I did go to Christian school for a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
It was no better of an experience than going to public school, honestly.
So I think this is good in a sense, but also it's interesting as to how it affects in general the family infrastructure, especially with like minorities and like the lower class, where they're I guess financially they're more than likely they're either single home or single parent homes, or they're both parents are working, so when it comes to, and there are other, I guess, formats of homeschooling too, where it's like, okay, if there is a parent that can kind of do a quote unquote daycare type of thing with local kids.
I do know that does happen.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying.
These homeschoolers will team together and kind of switch responsibilities.
So you have a social experience with your local community and stuff like that. So there's no fast rule. I'm just wondering, when it comes to the state and the government validating the education, that's where I think no matter what, they're going to be able to sort of set the standard, regardless of whether you're homeschooled or public schooled or whatever.
Oh, yeah, with the standardized tests. Now, with those standardized tests, if I remember correctly, they were more like mechanical than ideological. You know, you got your math section, you got your grammar section, you got your, I don't know.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though, because the standardized testing...
Math is racist now.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Math is racist. Like, everything, especially in like California, they're really pushing like the critical race theory stuff in everything, like even math. And they're even, I think I was listening to some, it was either a podcast or a YouTube thing. I don't remember who it was. I'm not going to source it correctly. But basically, they were a public educator in California, and they were basically, blowing the whistle saying like, hey, why are we basically, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm starting to get tired here. This is a long day. Penalizing advanced kids in math, and specifically they were talking about the Asian community, penalizing Asians that were more advanced in math for being advanced. They had to kind of like drop certain levels. Like if you're ahead and you're doing algebra when you're only supposed to be doing whatever, they're basically starting to eliminate those programs for racial justice. And the idea is like, normally in a normal functioning logical society, you would try to raise up the lower parts to a higher place so that everyone is moving upward. But no, they're doing it so they're tearing people down and bringing them down instead. It's just like it's
which
all
is
backwards.
why we all need to homeschool, Gons.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's just I'm watching the chat here, and yes, I'm getting a lot of good homeschool information. Of course, there's the issue of socialization, but if you're relying on public school to be your child's socialization, you're already going to be in trouble.
It's not a good place to.
Not the best. I mean, it's better than nothing, but you're kind of putting your children at the whim of other adults who have chosen to. Look, nothing wrong with being a teacher, but you have a group of secular individuals who felt it was their responsibility to pass on the knowledge that was passed down to them by a big government organization.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a friendly place for children who have some sort of religious tradition, whether it be Christianity or many others. As a Christian kid, I've gotten plenty of arguments with, not even arguments, I was smacked down by plenty of teachers for mentioning anything. Now, to be fair, even when I was in Christian schools, I got smacked down by, maybe I was just getting smacked down. And maybe
what's the common denominator here? This is Basil's rebellious attitude towards authority. That is the common denominator.
I was smarter than the other kids.
I know. What are you going to do about it?
I know. So anyways, I guess to wrap it up, what I'm trying to say is homeschooling parents are saints. I do enjoy the idea very much of not having the state solely responsible for molding the mind of your child. Again, homeschooling is, to put it in the common parlance, a very privileged thing to be able to do, not in this sort of like nasty way, but if you got two working parents, I'm sure it's maddening sometimes to try to teach your child something.
Well, that's all part of the economic infrastructure too. Like, it's interesting because what they're all teaching in the public schools, it's almost as if it's self-inflicting, because the government or whatever, the rulers that be, they create a gap in the middle class. The poorer get poorer, And then they're forced to kind of go to public school.
You make it unreasonable for the parents to be able to educate their own children. You keep the parents fighting hard enough and give them just enough to survive, but not enough to relax. And then they'll willingly hand over their children for indoctrination. That's been the agenda for a few decades, for sure, if not more. And so, I guess what I'm trying to say in the end is I'm encouraged. Even if, whatever, parents are teaching their children stuff that maybe I don't agree with, that's none of my business. And, I much rather would have a parent teaching their own child what they think is right for them versus handing their child over to the state for 12, 13 years to be indoctrinated in that way. We've seen how that's playing out. And I'm a fan of this trend. I give huge props to homeschool parents. That has got to be maybe the most difficult thing to do ever. And I think personally, I guess I'm just impressed because I'm not sure if I could handle it. But there you go. I think someday, hopefully this catches on and the infrastructure is secure enough for me personally to be able to do this. Maybe if producers keep producing the show and I don't have to go into the McDonald's trade, I'll have the freedom to homeschool my children, and I would probably prefer that.
I don't know why, but I was reminded of part 2. This is not safe for work, by the way. Part 2 of South Park, a pandemic special. If anybody watched that, there's they made fun of QAnon. Obviously, that's part of the course. But the QAnon group basically started homeschooling because some of the kids rage quit school. Like the whole thing is part of the narrative of the episode. And of course, the QAnon people break off into different, houses or whatever, and they come in and they, all right, shut the door. And then, the pedophiles run the government. And then the first thing they get taught are like,
right. It's the Q homeschool curriculum.
Yeah.
Here, you got to watch this video on YouTube. It'll blow your mind.
So anyway, it just reminded me of that whole part of it there. But anyway,
I also want to say, just to put it on record, I would say one of the most difficult parts about homeschooling is making sure your children are properly socialized. I don't even know what that means. It's just a term that I heard once. But yeah, that's, I do agree. I saw some in the chat that, the stigma against homeschoolers, being different, I believe is a propagated stigma by the public school system, specifically to try to discourage people from homeschooling. I've had many wonderful homeschooled friends that are still my friends today. They're the most beautiful, cool people that I've ever known. And but they had an opportunity to hang out with kids and many different things, clubs and sports and
there's other ways to
kids and
hang
stuff.
out
I think
and
the
socialize.
stigma is unfair and also part of the agenda.
Yeah, and plus, if you think about it, the mainstream agenda is always, and culture is always going to align with the public school system. It's all one big, thing there. So it's always going to.
Yeah, and isn't that kind of ironic? Like, oh, don't teach your children themselves. They won't fit in with culture. Let us indoctrinate them into fitting in. It's like, wait a second. What exactly is the motivation going on here? Killer Whale Channels and YouTube says, I put my kids in gangs so they learn the streets.
Oh, gosh.
There's some sort of socialization there. Okay, Guns, let's do some Nephilim updates and wrap it up.
Nephilim update.
So there's been a lot of, prepping for alien talk and stuff like that, and hybrids and, rats or mice with human lungs and all kinds of stuff happening out there, which is why I thought it was interesting that LiveScience.com, Live Science, decided to put together 20, and this is the headline, 20 of the most bizarre stories from the Bible.
Oh.
And in it has a whole bunch of stuff under the heading "Human God Hybrids," and I love how this is like the most
human God hybrids.
Yes,
Human god hybrids?
Yes.
What? Okay. I'm just making sure I heard that right.
Yeah, capital G God, by the way. The most non-descriptive way to bring up the Nephilim here, and it says, the Bible also introduces mysterious superhumans that influenced God's decision to send a flood that covered the earth. The book of Genesis says, quote, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of them they chose, Genesis 6:2. Their children were God-human hybrids that the Bible refers to as the Nephilim. God was unhappy about this interbreeding and, quote, regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled, Genesis 6:6. So he sent a flood that wiped out many of the humans and Nephilim, but none before ordering Noah to build an ark that saved a select few. The biblical story suggests that the breeding between gods and humans was a major factor in God's decision to send the flood. So, I don't know, it kind of mixes and matches different things there, but I thought it was weird that live science would even bring this up. And then, they go through all the other interesting or different types of biblical things.
I am looking through some of these. Some of these are really crazy. First of all, I think it's very interesting that live science made the connection with the Nephilim being a reason to flood the earth, because that is not necessarily a one-for-one connection on a surface level reading of the book of Genesis.
Sure.
That takes a scholarly approach to do that. So, which of course we are there. I'm not saying that's not correct, but it's the first time I've seen a secular writing up of that in a science-y way.
Yeah.
There is a weird one in here, and I don't want to get sidetracked, but there's a section called Moses has horns.
Yes.
Moses, on behalf of the Israelites, made a covenant with God on Mount Sinai. In the covenant, God promises that the Israelites will take control of a vast amount of land in the Levant, but in return must worship God and follow his rules, the Ten Commandments in particular. Moses chisels the covenant onto 2 stone tablets. After he returns from Mount Sinai, his face has been transformed, and he is wearing a veil. Quote, most modern translations say shone, or some such synonym, Swenson wrote, quote, but that's a guess, because the Hebrew word Quran doesn't appear anywhere else in the Bible. One possibility is that the word Quran actually means horns, because it is similar to a common Hebrew noun, karen, which means horn. In other words, Moses grew horns after making the covenant with God.
Yeah.
Some people in the Middle Ages believed that Moses had grown horns, and that much medieval artwork, as well as earlier and later work, depicts a Moses with horns, Swenson wrote, noting that the iconography of the ancient Near East, quote, shows the prevalence of horns on gods and goddesses, the association of horns with exceptional beings and special power.
Yeah. Did you not know about this?
I had never heard the horns on Moses thing.
Really?
No.
That's why a lot of the medieval sculptures and stuff have Moses with horns on it. It's
that is literally what I just read.
I know, but I'm just
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've looked into this, and it's more of like a translational opinion, more than like a direct thing, and a lot of in the Old Testament there, it says it right there.
Seems like a Luciferian twisting almost.
Yeah. In the original, I mean, this is where Moses comes down. His face is glowing. And if you read the other context of everything, I had the whole face like the sun thing from Matthew 17:2 and Revelation, and it talks about Jesus' face shone like the sun. The other time that happens, and it's mentioned, is when Moses' face was glowing like the sun, and they had to put the bag over his face, basically, because his face was glowing after coming down from Mount Sinai.
Yeah.
So I personally don't think it's horns. It's more, again, it's like a translational error later on in the Greek or whatever, that took that and ran with it.
Sure.
That's another thing. But it could be like a hybridization, like a Luciferian twist to the whole
It's
idea.
also got kind of a chimera vibe too.
It does.
Around the topic.
Especially since Netflix is tweeted this out in May. I guess the show is over now, or at least all the episodes of Sweet Tooth are published and out there. I haven't watched any of them yet. Have you watched Sweet Tooth, Basil?
No, I have not.
It's a post-apocalyptic fairy tale based on the beloved DC comic, and I'll play the trailer in the background.
Okay.
Once upon a time, bad people ruled the earth. They were greedy and self-destructive. And it shows all kinds of stuff blowing up. So nature made everyone sick. Oh,
of course.
Really interesting. Excuse me, are you a doctor? This is like a nurse walking into a doctor's office. And then a miracle happened. These
chimera
babies started popping up everywhere.
Half animal, half human babies just started being born?
Yeah, they just started being born. A miracle happened.
Okay. All right.
They called them hybrids. Your kind. It's your job to live a full life. He's talking to this antler
deer
boy.
Yeah.
But some bad people are still out there, Gus. Name's Gus.
Yeah.
And if I hear a voice, I will run.
Okay,
so it goes on.
It's a bit of like a coexist type of thing. You got the animal kids who are hated by the religious extremists who want to kill them.
Yes,
yada, yada.
And
okay.
Of course, it's anybody who is anti-hybrid is a bad person.
It's the bad guy. Yeah, the intolerant bad guys.
Which it plays into this whole propaganda of everything that we're seeing now. That's starting to get weird. Which plays back to the days of Noah.
But as the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
Speaking about socializing, get these kids used to walking around with hybrid animals, Birdman and Deer Boy.
Yeah, the message of this is going to say, hey, we're all different and special in our own way, so just accept everybody for how they are, or else you're a mean religious person.
And also get young people to really think about how cool it would be to have deer antlers and stuff.
I say that. Yeah, right. There, yeah, good point. I say that in a mocking way because it's such a played storyline.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so. I was thinking about this the other day. I was having a conversation with somebody, and I kind of mentioned like, the Christians aren't. I mean, they're not like. It's not that cool to be a Christian. Like, it's not fun necessarily. And this person was like, what are you talking about? You guys are like, you rule the world. You're like everybody, you're the norm. Like everything is built for you. I'm like, what are you, when was the last time you saw a movie or a TV show or book or anything where a Christian was a good guy? Literally never in mainstream media is a Christian a good guy in the story. They're always awful, hypocritical people, yada, yada, yada. The religious people are always the bad guy. What is this crazy doublespeak where you have been taught that, like, the world is Christian and you're such a rebel for not being Christian?
Yeah, it's kind of an old played out argument that
it's so played out. And that's kind of what I find with this thing, like, ooh, the special children, but the religious people don't like the special weird children. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, we get it. Every storyline is this exact thing. Is so tiresome.
Yeah, which is not surprising whatsoever. But a lot of times when people bring that up, they're railing against either 20th century evangelicalism, the political military, construct.
I think they're railing against a construct in the media that, I mean, they're only ever told, if you never met a Christian, if you never knew a Christian in your real life. Now, I'm not saying all Christians are great. There's certainly some ones that I hope to never meet again. But I'm not saying that they're, if you're a Christian, you're inherently a good person. I'm just saying, like, if you never met one and you only knew about Christianity through the media, which nowadays is more common than ever before, you only get contact with, truly just with Christian people through stories on television and the movies.
Well, I've always said,
of course, would be thinking that they're the worst people ever. Of course, it's by design. We know this.
Yeah. I was going to say that it was either the 20th century evangelical military political construct, or the Catholics, which is kind of like the main thing. And for me, I've talked about this before, but before, like, all my upbringing, my idea of a Christian was mostly given to me from The Simpsons and Ned Flanders. Ned Flanders was kind of like my model of what a Christian looks like.
Totally.
So there, I mean, that, to your point. And also I thought, even in high school, I was like, oh yeah, Christians, those are the ones that stand on street corners and tell you you're going to hell. You know, like not really thinking any deeper about anything regarding that. And, you know, I even experienced, it was in high school. I think I had a world religions class in high school, my junior year or something. And that was when I first started to ask why everybody was hating Christians. I went to a public school, and I remember this because it was on my birthday, and I had to go back to school on my birthday after swim practice. It was like 7:00 at night. Yeah, on my birthday, I get to go back to school for Christian guy talk. Yay, world religion class. So I get in there, and I remember there was like, we had like a Buddhist come in and a Hindu and all this stuff. And it was always, my teacher was always very like interactive and let them go on and on about their religion and all this stuff. With the Christian, the guy he started off talking about how his friend died in a car accident and stuff like that. And then he started getting into, only Jesus and all this. And then my teacher stopped him. He's like, all right, that's enough. It was like,
really?
And it was like, at the time I was like, oh, thank goodness, man. This thing has only gone like 45 minutes. We're not going to be here for 2 hours. I get to go home on my birthday.
Yeah.
But then in hindsight, I was like, why was the Christian guy the only one that was like stomped on by this teacher? It was really weird. And so little seeds like that started to percolate in my brain. And then I think I read, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis and all the little seeds leading up to age 24, I think, was when I was baptized. So anyway, it is different. It is interesting that the cultural view of things is that, the Christians, they basically, everything is built for them. It's like,
it's just ridiculous.
What?
And the ending, the way that this conversation ended was this person was like, and I'm like, it kind of dawned on him that like I was a Christian. Of course, he knows this, but he just didn't think about it like beforehand.
Because you're so cool, people don't think of you as a Christian.
That's exactly what he said. He said, "You're like the only cool Christian I know." And I'm Christian. Like, bro, I am the only Christian you know. Like 100% of the Christians you know are the only cool Christians you know. So that it was just like the crumbling. You could see the crumbling of this worldview of like, oh, Basil's the only cool. Wait a second, he's the only. Oh my gosh, everything I know is crumbling around me. Like, dude, it's just meet some other Christians. They're not all great, but there's certainly more cool ones than just me.
Well, and then I think the proper context of the worldview of what fallen humanity is, and understanding that really helped me understand, like, oh, okay, it's not based on like your assessment of people and their morality, all this kind of stuff. It shouldn't be based on, oh, because you believe this or because you believe that. It's more like, hey, it's like an inherent condition in all of us. That made way more sense to me as a worldview than, oh, you're a bad person because you're this religion, and you're a good person because you're this religion. Yeah, it's like a really shallow way of thinking about people. So anyway,
well, it's convenient.
It's and,
biased. Just to connect it with something someone said earlier regarding the homeschooling conversation. Don't sacrifice your children to the god of convenience, which, of course, as Americans, we are sort of trained to do. And it's just convenient to think of people in one-dimensional terms based on the categories that they fit in, which nobody should do, including Christians. And with that, I think we should end this show.
Let's wrap it up.
Okay, folks, thanks for tuning in to this episode of Canary Cry News Talk. Make sure to turn on your notifications, press subscribe, follow us in multiple locations, because we are going to be back on Monday, June the 7th. So make sure to be back here on the 7th. And really, I'm telling you, if you're just watching on YouTube, you need to follow other places. At any moment, we could be getting these more strikes coming on stuff that we've done months ago because, I don't know, they're angry that we're right about everything or something. So there you go. Make sure to catch us back on Monday. And thank you, because we'll need some producers for Monday's show. Just like we had producers for this show, it's the only way that the show keeps going, folks. And I want to thank our producers of episode 346 of Canary Cry News Talk. And those people are Patreon Account of the Year, Mackle G, Bush Protector is Gen X, baby, Egorius, Arnold W, Cherie H, Debbie Dubs, Daniel from Down Under, Johnson and Sons, Bill L, Sir Casey the Shield Knight, Malik W, James H, Killer Whale Channel, Saul A, Ciara, Stefan or Stephen M, Scott K, Tristan H, Fact Checker Bot, Kimberly W, and of course Paul Green for sponsoring some the artist producer contest, which gives some producership credits to producer Dove, producer Debbie, and again, producer Ciara, double producer. There we go. Thank you to our time stamper for last episode, Rachel C, and of course for the jingle, Jack V, our crypto Chad, and to all of our artists as well, Ali Dove and Jay Vela. You guys are the best. But you can produce the show by heading over to patreon.com/CCNT, or even better, head on over to canarycryradio.com/support.
canarycryradio.com/support.
That's right. And make sure to thank a producer today. They're the reasons that you get the show for today's show. And remember, you can become a producer in any amount you like. Just think of what kind of value do you get out of the show? What would it be worth to you to keep the show going? Put your own number on it, a number that's important to you. Make it feel good, and take some ownership of the show by becoming a producer. Now, you can become a producer in many ways, not just financially, but you can also create some art for the show, or jingles, or music. Any of those creative endeavors you can apply to the show. Just take a show-related theme and create something out of it. You can send that to canarycryradio@gmail.com if you like it easy, or canarycryradio@protonmail.com if you like to keep it secret. And also, let's see, how else can they become a producer? Those ways. Those are the ways. But you can also help out the show quite a bit by leaving ratings and reviews. Please do so. It's very fun. It gives Gons and I all the warms and the fuzzies. We love reading what you guys have to say about the show, and it helps out those algorithms, which really, unfortunately, is just kind of the name of the game when it comes to trying to do a podcast. So please, it helps us out a ton. Leave a rating and review on Apple Podcasts, or if nothing else, just tell somebody about the show. Share the show out on your social media. Press that share button, retweet something, whatever it takes. Just get the word out, man. It's just the way things work nowadays. I know we don't like it either, but you can really help us out. We're good at interacting when people share the show, that kind of thing. So do it. You never know when you might be the one to wake someone up to the fact that the world is not what it seems. And here's the thing. Y'all got friends and family who are starting to realize that the world is not what it seems. Just share a show directly to somebody personally you know. It's very important. We like to call it rattling cages. And if you need any more instructions, here's what you do. You walk right up to him, grab him by the cage, and then you shake it.
The end of the world occurred pretty much as we had predicted.
I want to shake things up, stir up some controversy, rattle a few cages.
Hey, stop that!
You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man, a crusader for the little guy.
Leave the bird alone!
Never! Rattle a few cages. Rattle a few cages.
The human race will have every opportunity to improve.
And if they don't?
Ask Noah.
That's right. Just ask Noah. Gons, any last words?
Woe to you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites! For you shut the kingdom of heaven in people's faces, for you neither enter yourselves nor allow those who would enter to go in. That's Matthew 23:13. And I feel like that's speaking to Susan and her crew over at YouTube.
Susan YouTube. Susan. Okay. All right, everybody. Well, make sure to tune back in on Monday the 7th, probably a little bit earlier than we did today, but we can't wait to see you there, folks. All right. Thanks for listening to this episode of Canary Grad News Talk. Make sure to tune in next time. But until then, think outside the cage.
Vaccinations.
Got a hairy bag. Come on, man.
Keep yapping, man.
You're under arrest for crimes against science.
Aborted feces.
Never do a Slim Jim.
Bits to live by.
I'm getting a very good feeling about vaccination right this moment.
Remember, reality is an illusion. The universe is a hologram. Bye, gold. Bye.
I want to shake things up, shake things up. I want to shake things up, shake things up. Leave the bird alone. I want to stir up some controversy. I want to rattle a few cages. I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. I get I'm the last angry man. You'll never silence me. I'm the last angry man. A crusader for the little guy. Well, we'll see about that.
Whatever, Illuminati.
Frightening scenario of a comprehensive cyber attack, which would bring to a complete halt to the power supply, transportation, hospital services, our society as a whole.
You're moving up with lots of charm. Come on, man, you're just an arm. Whoa. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl now.
Aborted feces.
Nazis are not welcome here.
I'm history. You're nuts and bolts. Perhaps 33 megavolts. Whoa. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl. Flippy, don't take my girl. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl now. Enslave my kids. Embark a new career. Don't you take her, it's not the year. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl. Flippy, don't take my girl. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl now. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl. Flippy, don't take my girl. Hey, Flippy, please don't take my girl now.
In the future, humans will be confined in a people's zoo.
I'll keep you safe and warm in my people's zoo.
You can't handle the truth.
I'll keep you safe and warm now in my people's zoo.
They are scum.
You in my people's zoo.
Come on, man.
I'll keep the cameras on in my people's zoo.
Are you even woke?
I'll keep the cameras on now in my people's zoo.
It's all coming together.
You in my people's zoo.
We're all gonna die.
Science is truth. Vaccinations.
All that. People don't even read their Bible, for heaven's sakes. And milk those babies into candles.
I'll make you fat and sassy in my people's zoo.
He's a Satanist.
I'll make you fat and sassy
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths!